We will now begin the Boynton Beach CRA meeting today, Tuesday, August 13th, 2019 at 6:31 p.m. Would everyone please rise for an invocation led by Board Member McCray, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us bow our heads, please. To the Creator and Maker of all mankind, Father, here we come once more again before you in the humblest manner that we know how. First, we come recognizing that thou art God, and besides thee there is no other. We ask as we partake in this meeting that you would lead us and guide us in the way that you would have us to go, that you would let us make decisions for the betterment of the citizens of Boynton. As I stand, I pray for the students, the teachers, the faculty, and all the administrative staff as they start a new year here in Palm Beach County. Continue to bless them, keep them, hold them in your hand is our prayer. In your name we do pray for Christ's sake. So amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Stephen B. Grant.
Here.
Vice Chair Justin Katz.
Here.
Board Member Mac McCray.
Here.
Board Member Christina Romulus.
Present.
Board Member Ty Pensurga.
Here.
All present.
All right. Michael, this is a revised agenda. What new items did we add?
Yes, Board Chair, we added the item under new business, and that would be item B, 15B.
Okay.
The consideration of the CRA's letter of interest to purchase the property located at 100 East Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, agenda is approved. Legal, anything to discuss?
No, I just wanted to give you all a brief update on the status of the execution of the MLK Corridor Purchase and Development Agreement. The developers had been out of the country for a period of time, which led to them not having executed the contract. Fortunately, Mike had a meeting with them this week. There were a few very technical, non-substantive changes to the document made. The only one I wanted to make you aware of is that the closing date had originally in the draft that you approved been scheduled for July 31st. Obviously, that's not going to happen as the contract wasn't executed, but substantively that doesn't change it because there's still a remaining deadline to have them close on the property by no later than October 31st, 2019. That deadline still remains, but we've moved the closing date to October 15th. Other than that, we expect them to execute the agreement tomorrow and onward and upward with that project.
All right. Yes, Commissioner McCray.
I'm going to ask legal, you all moved the date without considering us, or was just something you all did?
The underlying deadline was October 31st, 2019. They had to close by then. They could have asked for extensions up until that date, so changing it, that's why I'm actually telling you about it now, to make sure you're okay with it, as the agreement hasn't yet been executed.
Thank you. As long as I heard the word, as long as we are okay, thank you.
Okay, and we voted on that, the final drafting of that agreement?
I believe that was at the July board meeting.
Okay. All right. Moving forward to informational items and disclosures by board members and CRA staff. I'd like to begin. Today I went to visit our harbor master. Spoke with the attendant there. They're very happy with everything that's going on, and very happy to hear that. I was able to be in the CRA building when Teresa went to the historic Women's Club of Boynton Beach, and was able to take a little tour of that. It's fascinating before they start painting, and if the board has some time to see if they can see it, there's some amazing things that are there, and I think we need to have a discussion of what we plan to do with that building after it's finished and ready to be open to the public. And that is it for me. Commissioner Pensurga?
No disclosures.
Commissioner, Board Member Romulus?
I have nothing to disclose. Thank you, Chair.
Board Member McCray?
Thank you, Chair. No disclosures, but just want to say that I attended the dedication of the model block on Northwest 17th Avenue, Northwest 17th, Northwest 11th Avenue. They moved us to another place, but anyway, I want to say to staff, thank you all for a job well done. It was hot out there. We had a lot of fun. Board member Penserva grew ears out there. It was so hot, so that's all I need to say. He's going to get me back, though, but we're okay. Thank you.
I'll get you back.
Vice Chair, anything to disclose?
Nothing to disclose.
All right.
Chair,
Yes.
I do just want to say something real quickly. Just congratulations to all the parents and family members that are going back to school. I know yesterday was a great first day back to school, so just congratulations to everyone from kindergarten to college. So enjoy.
All right. Seeing no more informational items, moving on to announcements and awards. No announcements and awards. Any discussion on the informational-only items? Seeing none, moving to public comments. Individual speakers will be limited to 3-minute presentations. Please state your name and address for the record. If you would like to speak on an item on the agenda, please state the item that you wish to speak, and we will make sure to have public comments open at that time.
Good afternoon, Minister Bernard Wright, 713 Northwest 2nd Street. First of all, let me just thank Andrew Mack and that department today. The park was closed today for whatever the reason, and the brothers were really concerned, came by my house. I was kind of surprised that they did. But at any rate, when I called about it, I liked the way they went through and finding out that there was no investigation, there was no need for it being closed, and sometimes things just happen, and they did open it up. And I just want to thank y'all about that. Now, I want to speak about this Sarah Sim Park update. It's on the agenda. Should I talk about it now or wait?
You should wait. I'll make sure to give you an opportunity to speak on that item.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And I did get a request before to have public comments on the budget agenda item. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for public comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, moving on to CRA projects in progress. Michael, our CRA economic development update.
Yes, Board, the update on the Economic Development Grant Program and business development activities for this fiscal year are presented to you on the agenda cover. An update on our grants. Our overall budget for this fiscal year was $544,356. Grant dollars awarded to date to businesses listed on the cover below is $240,804. And the remaining fund balance as of today is approximately $303,552. There are a number of businesses that have entered the pipeline for funding. We hope to see those complete applications or a few of those at the September meeting. And you'll see there are 3 businesses that received their tax receipts issued in June, located within the district. And those are The Glowing Skin by Abby, Trudeau Herbs and Greens, and Zala Multi-Services, LLC. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Seeing none, moving on to Sarah Sims Park project update.
Yes, good evening, Chair and Board.
Chair, excuse me, before we move on. Minister Wright, you made comments about there was a park closed today, but you didn't say which park. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Good evening, Chair and Board members. Twee Shutt for the record. As a construction update for Sarah Sims, we've provided in the staff report the engineer's update as of August the 7th. And the park, there was a substantial completion that has been obtained. There was a walkthrough last week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to complete the whole thing because we had to do the ribbon cutting, but the construction is going well. There's some outstanding items that will be finished up and will be addressed prior to the project close-up date. As you can see on the screen, there's an aerial view of the construction that's been completed to date. Pavilions, restroom, paving, sidewalks, lighting, landscaping, and the performance pavilion is substantially completed. The work in progress, they're working on the irrigation and the park and cemetery portion, and as well as the security components of it. Decorative fencing and pedestrian access gates will be the last items to be installed. So the estimated completion date will be early September, and we're looking forward to a ribbon cutting towards November. If there's any questions, I believe Colin.
I have one question. Next to the cemetery on the north side, I noticed the other day it was fenced in. What are we doing with that? Like it's another segment of a park? What's going on there?
Yes, Colin Groff, our Assistant City Manager, is here to address those questions.
Colin Groff, Assistant City Manager. So that's being roped off because we're getting ready to put up a new fencing around the cemetery and all of that. So that's still under part of the construction. So there's still a few items that need to be finished, so it still doesn't look completed yet.
Let me ask the question. You said new fencing around the cemetery. What you all fenced off, is that going to be a part of the cemetery?
Yes, it is. Yes, we're trying to make sure the cemetery has its own fencing, so it's protected, and we can have a gate in and out, so there's good access. So I think the part you're talking about, yes, that is part of the cemetery. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to figure out exactly where you're talking.
I think you're getting me confused, and I think you're confused too. We already have a fence around the cemetery.
Right, that one's coming down. New fencing is being put up. Some of the fencing's coming down, not all of it. Some of it's coming down.
So are we expanding the cemetery, sir?
We are expanding the fencing.
Expanding the fencing. Okay,
To encompass all of the city, the park property and the cemetery property.
Okay, because my take is that, with the cemetery, the way it already is, I'm just saying, it's doing an injustice. I'm just saying to the park. Okay, by fencing that off when somebody can use it for something else, and I'm trying to figure out who made that decision to expand the cemetery.
We're not expanding the cemetery. We're trying to fence in the rest of the park. It does appear that it's going to be part of the cemetery, but the cemetery has not been replatted to be expanded. No.
Thank you, but it will be used as a part of the park.
It's part of the park.
That's
correct.
The part I need to make sure I understand, sir. Thank
yes,
you.
Sorry, I was confused.
No problem. That's my question.
And so now I'll open it up to public comments.
Again, Minister Bernard Wright, 713 Northwest 2nd Street. I see we have given it another name, Performance Pavilion. Originally in our conversation for years, it was amphitheater. You brought part of it down, But the thing I don't like, man, because I've been popping game all my life coming out these streets with the long and short car and game. And I'm just serious about this thing when it comes to reality. I've been in the civil rights movement for many years, and it's real about it. And I'm right now taking the banner of Robert E. Wells right now, running for city commission. Could have never imagined it in my life, being an ex-convicted felon 100 times over. But let me just say you something, man. We're not really appreciative at all. It's the greatest park I've seen, for real. It's great, man. My wife went by there again tonight. It's so grassy. Thank God for this continuous rain. Has done it great. That pavilion, man, is what's really going to bring about what we envisioned, for real, and generating wealth inside of there. I don't know nobody, the quality of life would be upset. I heard Mr. McCrae in that respect because, for concerts, it's just for that time. The ticket bar got noise, him all in my living room. To God be the glory, and it's a bar. So I don't think that is really will be the problem. I mean, we ain't got that many thousands of dollars just to put that cement there. There would be no liability of a stage collapsing. But, man, I mean, to leave it like that, it's an offense that when I do get in the seat by the grace of God, it's not going to stop because that's the highlight of the park, the amphitheater. Nobody want to perform on the ground, man. I mean, I don't want to see y'all try to spend no money to try to make a stage. It's going to be liability, and we don't want to take that chance, Murphy's Law. If something can happen, it will, by the grace of God. So, hey, man, I want to know where we stand on that because I get flack all the time. I know y'all hear about the Boynton Beach Coalition of Clergy and Heart of Boynton Beach, but I don't think none of them get the kind of flack I get from the ground root people like they ran to me today. But at any rate, I mean, if it's through with, it's not, I want to be able to tell the people something by the grace of God. And, with a little slack of money, it would take what it takes. I really would like to see a grand opening, man, like we never have before, for real. It's a great park, and I thank y'all for that. But taking into consideration, let's complete this amphitheater.
So I want to thank you for saying. And so, I was in Greece, Italy. I saw what an amphitheater is, and what we had on Ocean Avenue was not an amphitheater. It was a raised stage with a canopy. And the one thing that I see is that we've never used that park yet, because we have no idea how good or how bad that pavilion is. It's all perception or assumption whether it's good or bad right now. We haven't been able to use it. So I commend you for applying and running for city commissioner. And if you have the opportunity to get elected, you can help make those changes. Yes. But I do think that this CRA, in the budget meeting, we are going to talk about a unity in the community event for the opening of Sarah Sims Park. And then we can have the CRA do the testing of it. But before we can even do any of that, the city needs to allow for special permits for those types of events, because currently there is a total blockout for any type of events at Sarah Sims. And so we're going to have to work with the...
wait, let me hear that again. A total block out from any events of Sarah Sims Park, when and why. I understand
so
everything that's going on.
Excuse me?
Okay.
It's been going on, I believe, since December of 2015 or January of 2016 that there has not been any special events over at Sarah Sims.
Not since y'all had the Unity thing. Well, but that's understandable, because it was in such a disarray. I wouldn't expect y'all did that. Wasn't nothing, because I didn't even do
the city is going to have to talk about before any events go on there.
Yeah.
What exactly type of special events are we going to allow there as well?
What I'm proffering to you all is what my vision is when we were talking about that Club Continental back in the years when those celebrities, used to come in here. They come in here. You got a big field there. You got an open concert type area there that'll hold a lot of people, and not an overly rate of people, amount of people, but at any rate, it's going to be great for the entire community, man, especially the black community and our history and culture, man, and bringing money back into this city. And people, they want entertainment. And we do have it for that park. That's just not a kiddie park. I'm an adult, 66 years old, young, brother, in that respect, man. I'm looking for many years ahead of me. I want that park to enjoy. You understand?
And what do we also have to worry about are the neighbors of that park?
Well, listen, those neighbors been there culturally for many, many years.
Mr. Wright, those are the comments, and so you would have to speak to the city commission about the special event permitting.
Okay.
All right?
All right for that. But otherwise, we still can come out and do what we want to do as a public park.
Yep.
All right, see, if it was a stage, it'd be good. We like to come out and do it on stages, man.
All right. Commissioner, Board Member McCray.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to the comments that you just made, once we get back to the City Commission, we have not established rules for that park yet, what can and will take place. I'm just saying, once city bring things back to us, that's when we will vote on what can and will take place and what can and will happen in Sarah Sims Park. We have not gotten together with them to do the rules yet for what can and will take place. Until then, it's kind of like a mute discussion.
All right.
Chair, I'd like to weigh in on this.
Yes.
So I do not agree with Reverend or Minister Wright on a lot of things, but this is one of the things I do agree with him on. And I really think what it comes down to is just the fact that there was a miscommunication that happened between the city and the public. And I did notice that name change based on what Twee said today. I noticed that name change, and now we're calling it a performance pavilion, when all along it was being called an amphitheater. And yes, Mayor, I acknowledge that you said that you've looked up what an amphitheater is, and what we had on Ocean was not an amphitheater, but that's what it's always been called here in the city of Boynton Beach. That's what people of Boynton Beach accepted it as, and that's what it had become known as. And so when the statement was made that we were going to be repurposing or moving the amphitheater from Ocean Avenue to Sarah Sims Park, that is the assumption that the public made, that we were having that entire amphitheater relocated. When it was simply just an oversized umbrella that was relocated to Sarah Sims Park, I can understand the offense that happened there. And I felt the same way. I felt like it seemed as if we were just getting the hand-me-downs from the town square demolishment, and we were just getting, that. Sarah Sims was getting that. And so that bothered me, and I spoke to Lori about it. I've had that conversation with our city manager in regards to the fact that there was a real big problem with communication here. Yes, this was not budgeted. Yes, this was something that was done spur of the moment. But at the same time, it's about expectations and setting the expectations of the public. The public was informed that they were getting an amphitheater. That is not what happened. There was a pavilion that was transferred over. So what I'm asking is, and I've already made this request, so that will be coming before us as a commission on the city side, But what I've asked is for the city to get back to us in terms of what would it look like in terms of cost to bring that amphitheater to potentially what the public was expecting or anticipating when they were told that it was being repurposed and transferred over. And also what other amenities or situations will have to be taken into account for, like permitting and ADA and whatever else, all the other things that have been brought up as this conversation has been being had behind the scenes, but not really so much so in the public. I'd like to have this conversation because, again, it is, in my opinion, a disappointment that we're simply just getting the pavilion. I think there's a lot more to be said about that, but I'll really leave it at this point because I think I've made my point that I think there is more that can be done, and I'd like to see potential plans and layout of what we would like to do. We'll be having that discussion about future plans for Sarah Sims Park in terms of events and things like that. But let's understand that MLK Boulevard is the epicenter of District 2. In addition to that, Sarah Sims Park will be an anchor landmark, we could say, for the redevelopment of MLK. So if we're going to start now with saying that there's going to be restrictions on Sarah Sims Park, that already, I think, dilutes the purpose of what we're trying to do with MLK. In addition, I would also like to mention that my vision, and I believe other people's vision of what they see for Sarah Sims Park, is doing activities such as Jazz in the Gardens or other things that will bring the community together and allow for that community and that cultural exchange to happen. The ban that occurred at Sarah Sims Park was because of ATVs and destruction of property that was being done. I believe enforcement, especially through our neighborhood police officer program and other policing efforts, can help, I would say, avoid that. But these were the reasons why the ban was in place. With the redevelopment of the park and the millions of dollars that we've now spent to get it to this point, I do not believe that it is fair for us to put a jewel like this in the community and then to not allow for the community to use it to the best of its abilities. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Chair. I'm going to let the Vice Chair and then Commissioner Board Member Pinsurga.
Thank you, Chair. And just because we have a limited opportunity to discuss matters outside of chambers, I'll take this minute, if I'm allowed, to give my 2 cents on it. I will not support any additional funding for the performance pavilion or amphitheater or whatever else we want to look up in the thesaurus to call it. The expectations of the community prior to city staff repurposing the canopy from Ocean Avenue were that there would be no amphitheater, no performance pavilion whatsoever. It was not included in the master plan. It was not discussed at any length. Not a single board member on this board or sitting as a city commissioner advocated for it during the course of our approvals. So my suggestion is that in a future fiscal year, whether it's the following one, the subsequent one coming after the next one, we want to budget more money, that's fine. But the characterization of something that costs $80,000 to $100,000 as a hand-me-down seems a bit of a stretch. It's like someone handing you down a brand new Bentley or something to that extent. And then when you find out, because this park cost $1.8 million, someone gave you that Bentley, that it didn't have heated seats, you said, I don't want the Bentley, it's ruining the Bentley. It's just, if there is a desire to increase the usage based on demand and based on what the city commission ultimately authorizes, because it was not just ATVs that led to a prohibition on special events at that park, it was unsanctioned parties that led to violence and shootings as well. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and I just don't think that throwing money because a handful of individuals have expressed a genuine desire to see an improvement is a solution. We need to open the park. We need to celebrate the park because it's an almost $2 million revitalization. And from there, we can determine future usage. But I will not support additional funds because there are greater needs in the heart of Boynton than upgrading a performance pavilion or amphitheater or whatever we want to call it. There are a lot more pressing issues that we could address. So at this time, and again, I'll use this opportunity because we're only allowed to speak in these meetings together. I think that right now the substantial investment is sufficient. We need to open it, and in the future we can talk about an expansion, but I'm not interested in holding the budget for the city or for the CRA hostage to improve something that did not even exist in concept or reality until a couple months ago when city staff saw fit to repurpose an expensive and nice piece of equipment from Ocean Avenue.
That's not true.
Board Member Pinsurga.
There's been a conversation.
Excuse me, Mr. Wright, it's not your turn to speak, and if I believe you've had your time, so please sit down.
I've given this issue a lot of thought, and many things come to mind, many different arguments, point of views to consider. But at the end of the day, what I come back to is, I think about if this had happened in my district. If this had been brought over to the Meadows Park, how would the people react? How would I feel about it? You know, I want to thank staff for being proactive. You know, salvaging the upper part is a good thing, and I don't think anybody's saying that people are ungrateful for that. I think that had this been anything else, let's say a tennis court, let's say you had the poles and the fencing and the paint, but you didn't bring the net. And I think what it boils down for me is that at the end of the day, no matter what you're building, people expect, and you're building with taxpayer money, people expect the job to be done completely and done right. I don't think that's too much to ask for, and I think the situation would be the same wherever it may be. It is compounded by the fact that it is in the area where it is, and there is the history that there is. And so I stand in full support with Board Member Romulus on this issue. My take on the solution is that if there is an affordable solution, we're talking about concrete here, folks. You know, this concrete may not cost that much money. It may not mean a lot to other people, but to others, it means the world, because they too deserve the whole package, right? Not just half a tennis court, not just half a performance center, whatever we're calling this. You get the whole thing. And we're not asking, I'm not asking for a Kravitz Center. We're not asking for something over the top. We're asking for something comparable. There must be a simple, easy solution. It's concrete. I bet it won't cost more than $10,000, probably at that. And so, bottom line, I support Board Member Romulus in this issue.
All right. Is there any more comments from the board? And, you know, I looked it up for a point of clarification. In February of 2016, the City Commission voted to add no more permits at Sarah Sims, in due in part because of someone being shot the day after Christmas. And so we need to make sure that that park is safe above all.
Well, we do have all the new security features in place. So.
Okay. Moving on to the Ocean Breeze East project update.
Yes, Board. The brief update on the Ocean Breeze project is that the developer, Centennial, has submitted their drawings to the building department and have received their first round of review comments for their permit approval. And it is anticipated that they will respond here in the next several weeks before the end of August with revised drawings, and they are still on target to begin construction in November of 2019. We did have a brief conversation about a potential groundbreaking event to honor that project start, which we have ideally would like to see in November in cooler weather. And coincidentally with the potential park opening tied into that groundbreaking, we could really, I think, have an opportunity to highlight a fantastic project that has really been long overdue, and certainly a tremendous amount of effort by the CRA and the board to get that project going, and then incorporate those that are at the groundbreaking to enjoy the opening of the park. So I think being the proximity is so close to each other, it'd be a great opportunity to do two things at once. So we'll keep you posted on the dates that are determined for both, working with the city, of course, on the Sarah Sims Park opening celebration.
All right. One of the, you know, you gave us the data of what the pre-bid cost estimates for construction of $17.4 million.
Yes, sir.
And so, you know, and then at the bottom it says cost of washer and dryer per unit of $50 per month.
Yes,
Is that something the tenants will be paying?
This item was question that was asked by the CRA board of the developer in an attempt to contemplate additional funding or additional amenities that the board may decide to pay for in the future, or at least to have the information to make a decision on that. And one of the items that was repeatedly brought up with this project and in the community meetings about the MLK Corridor project was the washer and dryers in units, and how the rents reflect those if a tenant wants to rent those washers and dryers. And again, the board was looking for a cost that is included in the rent, and that's $50 a month. So if you would like us to pursue further discussions with the developer on how to offset the $50 a month times the number of units that are developed, the 123 units, and bring that back to you, I'm happy to do so. At this point, the information is being brought forth kind of in response to some questions that you had had.
So out of 122 units, that's an extra $73,000 a year.
Yes, sir.
And so that's something that we can look at. And do we get an estimate of their rents? And if that rents include water, electricity, cable, internet service? You know, one of the things that I want to make sure is that, you know, this is affordable housing, and I want to make sure that the management company isn't charging all these additional fees like water, electricity, a management fee, an application fee, so that we can make sure that this is affordable housing before you know, anything that moves forward, or does the CRA need to put more money into it so that it is cost effective for them? Board Member McCray.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to agree with what you just said, because paying $50 a month, that's $600 tacked on to an apartment, you know, for whoever moves in there. And I'm not in favor of that. I'm just saying we need to make it amenable. I'm just saying for whoever wants to move in there, that they can afford it. We don't want us to say that we are doing something and we turn right around and say, wow, we didn't price ourselves out. You know, take it back to them and let them know washers and dryers should come with the place. I'm just saying refrigerators, etc.
All right. Board Member Romulus.
I remember vaguely cost estimates that were given to us for rent prices were ranging from $400 to $1,200. Am I mistaken in remembering those numbers?
Depending on family size and income and bedrooms, yes, that's a pretty wide range. I think $1,200 would be the most expensive, and I'd
right, like a 3,
yes,
2 or something.
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
I would like to see those numbers again wherever they exist to bring that back to us, so I know what the numbers are, because I think they gave us those numbers when they were doing their response to the RFP, so it wasn't concrete yet. I'd like to see what those numbers are now, or if anything has changed. In addition, I'd like more information about how, like, I know there's probably going to be some type of wait list or something, but how can people who are in Boynton Beach especially start reaching out to Centennial or whoever is going to be managing this property to get added to, you know, whatever list, you know, of first come, first serve to really be in line for these units. I'd like that information to be shared with the public.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Personal opinion, whatever you can do to make sure there's washers and dryers in the units. I was under the assumption that basic appliances would be included. I know it's workforce housing, it's below market value housing, but there's a level of expectation and there's a level of dignity that goes with having those basic appliances in there. So that's my personal preference. To any other bills, electric, water, cable, and all that, you know, that's anyone's individual responsibility, regardless of what their station in life is, to pay for water and electricity. But the idea that these units would not have washers and dryers, I think, lives up to a stereotype that would be perpetuated about affordable housing, and we're not trying to create stereotypical affordable or workforce housing. We're trying to create something nicer than that. So it needs to have washers and dryers, in my opinion.
Commissioner, Board Member Katz is trying to say we're not trying to create the projects here.
And one of the things, in order to help pay for it, I know that this developer has not requested tax incremental funding, so we could possibly use the increased taxes from this development to pay for any of the improvements to that development. Is there any more comments for Ocean Breeze East? Seeing none, moving on to the Historic Women's Club of Boynton Beach.
Yes, again, Tweesha for the record. This is just an update. Last month, the board approved a contract to be executed with Specialized Property Services for the interior and exterior painting as well as the waterproofing for the building. The contract was fully executed by the given time, August 1st. They did it the day before. We had a pre-construction meeting on August 9th, and we expect the work to begin by August 19th. The bond, everything, and the insurance is in place. Just to note, in order to have the painting project done, we also had to fix all the windows and doors that are really badly deteriorated. Bonnie has it on the screen there for you to see the before and after some of the shots of the windows, so you can see what the money that was spent. That was approximately $24,000, including an owner's contingency. So that would be all be ready for the painters to come to paint it. One other additional item that we did leave to the end is the hardware won't be replaced until the painting's done. We just didn't think it was, it was reasonable to do it afterwards so that you don't have to have one contractor put it on, another take it off within weeks of each other. So all this will be completed by December 1st, weather permitting, and part of this will be paid by the Solid Waste Authority grant. $66,000 of this was to be for the painting will be paid by the Solid Waste Authority grant, in addition to the CRA's funds. If there's any questions, I'm here.
Yes. So on my visit today, there is this amazing mural at the back of the stage. Reminds me of a picture of Versailles. Basically, it's like a Venus de Milo in the middle with almost like an infinity pool looking. We don't necessarily know the construction quality, I guess you could say, of that mural. And so right now there are cracks in there, and the plan is to, fill in those cracks and paint it black for a stage. I'm in the senses that that's something that I'd like to tell the painter to wait off until October or November, so that we can see if there is the historical value of that mural, and my intention would be to save it because it adds a lot of value to the facility during the day when all the windows are open. Because that's one of the best parts about that building. It was built before electricity came to this area, and so it's meant to be viewed during the day. And I think it's, I put some of those pictures on my Facebook page for the board to see, so I'd kind of like get a consensus to see if we could ask the painters to hold off painting over that mural so that the board can get some information, whether it's 20 years old or 60 years old, and what it would take to restore versus repair.
I'm in favor.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Just a question for staff. If we ask the current contractor who's taking care of all that to delay this portion, is that something that would just be the last thing they do, or would this become a new thing that they have to do because they have to budget more time after the initial jobs timeline and costs and all that stuff?
If it's just a matter of painting, it's not a problem to hold off. I think where the question needs to be addressed to them is the plaster repair. There are cracks in this back wall, and I think we can sequence. We can try to check with them to see if they can hold off while staff look at to see if it's the historical context. We're looking at whether or not it's 20 years versus 50, which is a typical number of years to be designated historic. So we're going to look at that, and I know we are scheduled to go back to the board again for the fees. We look at fees and also programming of the building in the next couple months. So definitely we will be able to find that out within that certain amount of time for you.
Okay, so I don't oppose considering preserving it, but as you said, I'd want to know a little more context about how old it is, if it's been redone in recent years, so it's not really that old anymore because it got redone or something, so just the details.
There was an original mural on the back that they painted over with that, from what I understand, but I can verify with the ladies at the Women's Club as well as any of the historical record. We do know there was a curtain that is definitely historic. So that we've kept and, we've rolled down and kept in a safe place. But this we will have to research a little more for the board and report back.
Board Member McCray.
Thank you. While you're bringing it back, I'm just saying, see if, to keep from hindering the painting of the building, if you can like cover it or something like that so that it can go on. I'm just saying we can paint around it.
We can certainly sequence it so that it can be, worked into their program as well, so it's not going to delay.
Yeah.
I don't
want any more delays in that building. I'm just saying because we're losing funds. We invested, and I haven't seen any returns like for some years now, and I'm kind of like worried,
I certainly think we ought to be able to bring something back to the board by the September meeting that would certainly give you enough information to decide how you want to move forward on the mural. That seems reasonable.
And one other aspect of the Women's Club is that we bought it with all the furnishings, which includes all the paintings, different bookends, different tables and cabinets. And I'd like to see if the board is willing to either get an estimate or to approve a antiquer to appraise to see if there's anything of value of that. Do we want to continue having this, furnishings in the Women's Club, or do we plan on changing it out with new furnishings?
Which will cost more, the appraiser or the items?
Well, the other thing is that if we are trying to use it as a different type of venue, most people don't necessarily would like to use those old items. So we can always sell the old items after an antiquer appraises whether it for the historic value or the actual antique value. Yes, Board Member McCray.
Thank you. But the building itself said it's the former historic Women's Club of Boynton, and I'm just saying when we start taking historical items out, I'm just saying it's going to be like a modern Women's Club, and I'm just saying I don't want to lose that historical effect.
Most of the furniture that is part of that circa 1920s, we are keeping if they're in good condition. There are a lot of furniture that was brought in by the ladies when they're running it that are contemporary furniture. They're not in really good condition, broken legs, all that other stuff. And there's some murals and things that we're going to keep those historical contents. But we will definitely, take whatever the board would like to direct us as far as the furniture that's more of a contemporary and they're not historical in nature.
So, what I'd like to see is that, I know that I believe Teresa did an itemization of the different things that are there. If we could, get that itemization, so of all the different, former Boynton Gala pictures, and I saw that there's like different old Boynton Beach Chamber maps. And so just to have, not necessarily just for this board, but for the community, that we digitize it and so that there's a record of all the artwork and all the furnishings that are there.
Yes.
Yes.
I would just recommend that once we determine a precise use for the facility, that at that point we make these types of decisions, because depending on, if it hypothetically is being billed as an event venue, if you try to keep it exactly as it was and make it look like a 1920s or 50s or whatever, you might pigeonhole the potential renters of that facility to people who explicitly want that versus people who might want a more flexible or neutral environment inside for a modern event. So I would just say until we determine the use, do what you need to do. But as far as spending money or appraising stuff or fixing stuff, we don't really know exactly what we're doing with it yet. So,
all right. No, I would second that. We'll wait till we figure out what we're doing with it. All right. Moving on to the model block infill housing project, Northwest 11th Avenue roadway project ribbon cutting.
Yes, Board, this is just a recap for the board and the audience, those that didn't attend, that we did do a ribbon cutting for the completion of the Northwest 11th Avenue roadway improvement project, which is associated with the model block infill housing project that is a joint project between the city and the CRA. This is a long-awaited roadway with great fanfare, and I think it was, despite the heat It was an excellent event. It was very well attended, and the newspapers carried it, and we really appreciate the CDC's involvement and, of course, Habitat's involvement in the construction of these new affordable homes. And our partnership with the city keeps being and getting more and more successful every year, and this is just another example of that. This area that is, you'll see on the screen, the grassed lot area behind the segways and the buses is where the next 10 houses, new houses under the model block project will be built. And we did groundbreaking, one for both for Habitat at the east end of Northwest 11th, and it was a moving experience. I think everyone that was there enjoyed it, and again, thanks to the board for your participation and the comments that were made of support for both the project and the partnerships and the individuals that are moving into those houses. So we just wanted to kind of wrap this project up as far as the roadway is concerned, and now we're moving on to the house construction phase, and we'll do a ribbon cutting, I'm assuming, when that door is open for that new family as well, and we'll keep you posted on how that progresses.
Yes, Board Member McCray.
Thank you to Michael. I just want to tell you all, thank you for putting the fence up that secured the property on the north side. I think it's the north side next to Point Santa. I'm just saying because we was trying to figure out what we was going to do with that property so that we could, separate the family from that roadway. And I'm just saying that was a plus the way you all, took care of that. Second thing is I was glad to see the principal of Point Santa, attend the ribbon cutting ceremony because she said too that Point Santa was partnering, Palm Beach County is partnering with us in this project, and I'm just saying that's a nice gesture to this community that, we're not doing this all by ourselves.
Yes,
just want to say thank you again.
All right. Is there anything? Yes.
I'd like to just comment that, with the completion of this road, what it also means is that this is now allowing for access to 10 new affordable homes to be built in that thoroughfare in that right away. So it's exciting, and excited about the partnership with Habitat and just all the different community partners, community greening, everybody who came together to make this happen and who will make those affordable homes a realization for all those families. So it's exciting, and I like the direction that we're heading in with all of this.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments? Seeing none, moving on to Palm Beach County Housing Authority project update.
In addition to the agenda cover, which provides a little background as well as the status of our last discussion, which was to we received a letter from the Housing Authority that they would like to schedule a meeting in early July. That date went by us, and after some efforts of trying to get that scheduled with travel and other related issues with both parties, really. But we do have a meeting scheduled so that you'll know at the CRA office on August 30th at 10 a.m. for the city manager and myself, and the assistant director and the director of the Housing Authority, Mrs. Jones-Gilbert, and Mr. Larry Greenberg, their property asset manager. And we'll report back to you at the September meeting on the progress that was made at that meeting. That's a good step forward.
I saw that the Palm Beach County Housing Authority has their next meeting on August 19th. I'm looking to, I believe I can attend that meeting and hopefully, give our position that we want something built on that, and we're not trying to go beyond that because it is a big scale to do everything all at once, and that's kind of based upon the letter that we wrote, and I just want to make sure that's okay from the board if I go and give our position based upon the letter. I got a thumbs up. Thank you.
Mayor, Chair, I have no problem with you going, representing us, providing you only said what we stated, that's all.
All right. Yep, I'm going to rely to the four corners of the letter that we sent.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving on to consent agenda. Any items wish to be pulled? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion is approved unanimously. Moving on to old business. Consideration discussion of fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. I did receive a public comment request for this item, but we're going to let Jabara begin.
Good evening, Board. Jabbar Jenkins, Accounting and Finance Manager. If you look at page 1 of the budget report that was presented to you, I will present far as where we found additional funding in reference to the differs. So we found an additional $237,296 for you to reallocate, as far as in a decrease for Casa Cosa at $43,500, Walmart at $100, Seaborn Cove Phase 1 at $8,250, Seaborn Cove Phase 2, $10,500, and 500 Ocean, $174,946. If we continue to the live spreadsheet, as of July's meeting, and with the additional funding, the amount now that you have available to allocate is $499,505.
You said that included the 237 you just mentioned?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
You may begin.
Quick comment, if I may.
So I'm going to, because it's the budget, I'm going to let everyone have an opportunity to speak in order. So Vice Chair, then Board Member McCray, and just go down the line. And so that it's easy fashion.
Thank you. So in response to an item that will be coming up on our agenda as amended, and a property on MLK, without getting into specifics on numbers because there's still some unbudgeted things, I would highly recommend that if there's any desire to go into a direction of acquiring or appropriating funds for that property, that we use a good chunk of this money, the unallocated money, the $500,000, because if we were not to put more money into the MLK line item, that one property could hypothetically eat up a majority of what's available, which means there would be much less available for acquiring additional parcels on MLK. So if in the future of this meeting, the discussion trends towards acquiring that property or spending money on that property that's come up, I would personally like to see more go into MLK corridor to cover some of those costs so we don't eat all of that line item.
Chair, my comments is ditto, the same as what the Vice Chair said. I'm in agreement, and I'd like to also hear what the public has to say before I make any decisions. Thank you.
All right. Board Member Romulus?
Yeah.
Nothing yet, Chair.
Okay. Board Member Pensurga?
In the previous meeting, I just wanted to update you. I spoke about the need to increase funding for the Art Walk events. Currently, the Art Walks are receiving approximately maybe 1%, maybe less, of the total events budget. And looking at how successful they've been, I think that it's time that we double down on the investment. And in the previous meeting, there was consensus to go from, 6,000 to a total of, I think it was 20,000. It was pending, though, some data from staff. I believe it was Board Member Romulus who asked for some data. But I think, given the success, it's time that we double down the investment.
Good evening, Board. Mercedes Coppin, Business Promotion and Events Manager. We placed on the dais some information that outlines the request that was at the last board meeting regarding the In Culture Art Walk that we had January 2019. I had provided a budget breakdown which provides a full overview of the funds that were expended for that event, as well as the recap of that event that was provided in February of 2019. Just to clarify, Board Member Romulus, you had requested that we provide a year-to-year analysis of that event. We have only had one In Culture Art Walk, which was January 2019.
All right.
I've also included, per Board Member Pinsurga's request, an overview of the Rock the Plaza events, which shows the dates and the locations of each Rock the Plaza that we had fiscal year 2018 through 2019, as well as the estimated attendance for each of those events.
My question is, if you have that information, can you, thank you, so that
That's the first one.
What is the analysis that you're looking to put on the screen now? Mercedes, is it the...
Well, we have the first one, Bonnie, if you could just go back to that slide that you just had there, which was the breakdown of the cost for the In Culture Art Walk. That is what that represents there. That's actual funds that were expended for the event in 2019, totaling $6,455.92.
What was the original budget?
$5,000. We've requested $6,100 for this year's event. We do not anticipate needing to do the site cleanup or the dumpster rental that we had for this year. Yes, sir.
thank you. My take with the breakdown is, I'm just saying, you know, it's like 6,000, 45592. I'm just saying, instead of going from all the way up to 20,000, you know, I'm willing to stop at 10. I'm just saying that looked like a hell of a jump to go from $6,000 to $20,000. I'm just saying, you know, I support it, but I don't think I want to support it no $20,000. I'm one person.
Yes, sir.
I think my only question in regards to the justification of the 20,000 jump is, what is Board Member Pinsurga anticipating that would require that type of allocation?
Sure, I can speak to that, but Michael, it looks like you wanted to say something.
Please, I'll follow up.
So we're estimating around 6,000 per event, so it's looking more like 6,500 per event.
Mm-hmm.
And so the intention was, if we double this event, that will bring us to $13,000. Now, this is for the logistics of the event. Of course, you have to add for marketing, and after speaking with staff, I think $4,000 will be enough to cover the marketing for both events. So we're approaching 20,000, but that's because we're doubling the event. We're having 2 of these art walks. Is that a fair explanation?
Follow up with you, and really the point that I was going to make was that you could, I realize $3,000 is different, so $17,000 is what I think we could do. At this point, every dollar matters, and if $17,000 for 2 events sounds different to you as far as doubling the cost for the $13,000 plus marketing, that's kind of spread out over the 2 events. So
the marketing cost isn't actually increasing.
$2,000, right?
Right, it's staying the same.
Correct.
Board Member Cray, I'm going to...
Completely up to the board.
Is it, Board Member Cray, you have to speak on this item regarding the art walk?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I'd like to speak on my item, and then we'll go back to Vice Chair Katz. You know, one of the things that I saw was that, you know, last time we had the Excel spreadsheet that showed us exactly how much we had left over. Did you guys do one of those this year, Bonnie? And so that you see, no, it's a little small, but, and so that it says right now, based upon the Cra Board's adjustments, that there's only 13,000 left over. Is that correct?
Your line item is just under 500,000 at the 499,505.
And then the one to the right, all the way to the right, is what the Cra Board suggested. I see.
Correct, and they were working with the number that you were working with at the last meeting, which was the 3,097,000 and change.
And now we're at 334,000. 3,334,000.
You're at 3,300,000. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So they then at their next meeting will be looking at the 3,334,000 and what you've recommended at this meeting, if you provide them that assignment again. So they're taking what you're doing at each meeting and looking at it, understanding that that those numbers change for you, the CRA board, before they see it.
All right. And so the two things that I'd like to add what the CRA board said is that they requested to add an additional officer and one CSO. Rather than adding an additional officer, I'd rather add an additional CSO. We're not necessarily requesting that officer to be making arrests. And based upon our current staffing levels for the police department, I'd rather have it in the budget to add a community service officer rather than the sworn officer. In addition, I was happy to see about the economic development grants. And one of the things that the CRA board had, so they wanted to increase it to $289,000. I don't necessarily know if that much, but one of the things that I'd like this board to consider is not necessarily exterior facade grant, but a safety grant, so that certain CRA businesses would be able to apply for a 50% reimbursement up to $5,000 on a $10,000 investment for security cameras, for floodlights. I feel like this is a valid investment in the CRA district to help improve safety, especially with the new police department that we're having, with the ability to have that real-time crime center and hopefully use the new cameras to help deter and catch criminals in the CRA district. And so those are the two comments that I have regarding the budget, but I'm going to let Vice Chair go and then Board Member McCray.
All right, so I'll run down a list of comments based on some of the things that were said. I support whatever's necessary, if it was $17,000 or $20,000 for the art, the doubling of the art walk and more advertising. I don't know the precise boundaries of the CRA on that side of town, but that art area was specifically included for a reason, so it seems to make sense that should be something that's paid attention to. And given the success of the most recent event, I'm in favor of whether it's 17 or 20, whatever staff says is necessary. So that's for the art walk. I like the idea from the board chair on some form of reimbursement for security upgrades, so long as in the agreement for those seeking that grant that they tie in and allow PD access to their security so that it becomes a part of the network, not just that we were to buy cameras and they would be cut off from our police command center. I do like that, thoroughly like that, so good recommendation in my opinion from the chair. And the last one, with regards to increases for the neighborhood officer program, I'll kind of reiterate what I said last meeting about my concerns with the rising costs. It's not so much, and I'm going to make clear my position so my words don't get twisted. My concern is who pays for it, whether it's the CRA or the city, and whether the CRA is the appropriate funding source or the city is the appropriate funding source. And to my concern last time, as the costs escalated, not whether the program expands, because that's not my concern. Should the CRA be using dollars for this, additional dollars, or should the city bear the cost if this body sitting as the commission wish to increase the allocation? Again, to my concern that it had escalated in cost at the last meeting, the recommendation from the CRA board increases the cost a further 20-odd%. If we do the CSO, I know that's less, but you know, at some point, if we have a CRA police force, it raises questions as to whether or not that's an appropriate use of CRA funds or whether the city should bear the cost for that. So again, to be crystal clear, not advocating against the program or even the expansion of the program, just that as costs escalate and we dedicate more CRA dollars that could be used otherwise for rehabilitation of slum and blight, I think that we as a body are blessed with the ability to make decisions as a commission and a CRA, since we're the same people, that we need to decide that. My personal opinion is if this is going to continue expanding costs, that as a city commission, we should allocate the funds from that source so that CRA dedicated funds can continue to be used for rehabilitation of slum and blight. I think that's everything I got.
Okay. Board Member McCray.
Thank you. I'll start with the art walk. Is anybody here from the art walk to address this increase? That's,
Marcia, I guess you're...
Yes, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to hear. I wear hearing aids.
I'll say, I like to talk loud. I'm
Sometimes it's
gonna
a little challenging for me to hear. Thank you.
So would you,
My question is, hold on, please, let me speak, because you said you're hard of hearing. I want to make sure we're hearing each other.
Yes, it's hard for me to hear and
Okay, I'll
hard for
talk
sometimes
loud.
people to hear me.
I'll talk loud. First of all, I want to know, the $20,000 increase, is this too much money? Yes, ma'am, I'm asking you, is this too much money? What do you expect to give to the city for $20,000?
excuse me, would you please state your name and address for the
yes,
record?
I'm going, okay. My name is Marcia Levine, and I live at 625 Casa Loma Boulevard in Boynton Beach. And it's the first time I've ever spoken at a city meeting, so I'm going to refer to my notes if that's okay. I'm a little nervous. I'm a fairly new resident to Boynton Beach, having relocated from Manhattan, where I spent most of my adult life. And I realized early on how special Boynton Beach was when I saw how much art and public art was all around me. Soon after I arrived, I joined the Arts Commission Board, Arts in Public Places, where currently I'm vice chair, but tonight I'm here speaking as a passionate arts lover and a super fan of Boynton Beach. I love art walks. I work currently in the Cornell Art Museum in Delray Beach as a museum associate, and I see how successful the Delray First Friday Art Walk is, and I also make it a point to visit other South Florida art walks. I see how important they are for a community. The Boynton Beach Arts District is the only, for now, thriving outlet for artists in the community. It needs funding, I believe, to grow. Just a few examples. The parking has become more challenging as the crowds grow. And each month, I recommend that a shuttle service running maybe the duration of the art walk. I don't know what it costs. I'm just sort of speaking here as an observer for what this art walk needs. I believe this takes funding. When funding has been applied to bringing in quality vendors to the art walks, as we saw at the last art walk, attendance rose. Definitely, I saw that in the last art walk. I've gone to every art walk since I've been here. I've been here for about a year and a half, and I've made it a point to go to every single one, even the ones during the summer, even the ones that were like kind of off the schedule. The gentleman that runs it, he has like, just in between ones. And I've been watching the crowd size, and they've been growing, a little bit, and I believe that in order for it to grow, it needs marketing and it needs funding. I don't have the exact metrics, as I'm not involved in running the art walk, but I can safely say Boynton Beach is hungry for events like this, and it's going to take funding, major funding, more funding, I don't know, to make them successful. And that's what I just had to say. I don't know how much. I'm not involved in all the numbers, but I certainly think it takes more money than it has right now. And thank you for my opportunity to speak about it.
Thank you. You convinced me. Okay.
Hey, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. Just to reiterate what Marcia said, to answer your question, Board Member McCray, the big problem is it's become so big so quickly. I personally am an advocate for CRA getting involved because I think the talent with CRA, especially Mercedes and all the special events people, can really make a difference in improving the logistics. This event it's grown so fast it can't keep up with itself. And I think they need CRA's expertise, and I think they do desperately need a shuttle bus or crossing guards and get people to park across the street where the old Krispy Kreme was. It's now an eye doctor place. There's got to be some kind of parking situation resolved because that's the big hindrance. And, I think your expertise would go volumes in making this a much better event than it already is. And is now the appropriate time? I got some answers for you about the mural when you were questioning it for the Boynton Beach Women's Club. I texted
not now. If you'd like, you could speak to us afterwards.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you for your comments. My next question is, I need to hear from staff in regards to this community, whatever officer that the mayor said that we need to put in there. I need to hear from you all. Do we need a sworn officer or do we need this individual that he's just spoke of? I needed to hear from the PD department.
Yeah, Captain, if you could describe the difference between the community service officer and a sworn officer.
Sir, I know that, unless he want to tell it to you.
Tell me. I'm asking.
Tell him.
Paul Deal. Clarification before Captain starts speaking. The CRAB board is asking for an extra officer, so they're asking for 5 officers. I just want to clarify what is being asked exactly.
Michael? 4 sworn officers and 1 CSO is what the CRAB board was
So they're
recommending.
adding an extra person now.
Adding an extra officer to what was proposed. Yes.
Paul Deal, Captain, Boynton Beach Police Department. Well, I'll answer your question first. You asked me what the difference between the sworn and non-sworn is. Sworn basically would obviously have arrest powers, whereas the civilian person would not. There's certain type of calls that they could respond to that the civilian cannot as well. They're not allowed to take sworn statements. They're not allowed to issue, if they were to issue a citation, they can't issue criminal citations. So basically, they can only do non-criminal activity. That's basically the difference.
So like parking violations?
Yes, parking violations, yes. If it comes to other issues, like if they were, we use our CSOs to respond to traffic crashes. Now, if it turns out that one of the drivers has a suspended license, which is a criminal violation, they then have to call a sworn officer to come and issue that particular citation.
All right. And so based upon, I believe, Board Member McCrae's question, what is your opinion regarding adding another sworn officer or another CSO to the community policing unit in the CRA?
With all due respect, my first knowledge of the additional officer, meaning the 4th officer, was yesterday. And Chief Gregory is out of town until Friday, and I'm not even sure he's aware of that. So he would have to, he's the one who would have to make the final decision along with City Manager Laurie to see if that's even feasible from that perspective. But from a police department standpoint, we would, love the suggestion of having an additional officer, and I'm sure behind me, Sergeant Deal, who runs the program with me, I'm sure he can give you some more insight as to how that officer would be utilized as opposed to the CSO from a logistical standpoint, day-to-day operations.
Yes, Board Member McCrae.
Thank you. Somebody help me, because I thought when it came before us that we said that we was going to add 1 sworn officer and 1 CSO officer when we did the budget for the city. Am I missing?
Yes, that was the original 5, I'm not sure if it's on there, but the original 535. And then I was given some figures last night for 1 more additional officer, and the figures were, I believe, I'm not sure.
We have 3 officers now, and this will put us up to 4.
Well, we're going to remove, if you remember from the last meeting, we were going to take Sergeant Deal off of the CRA's budget and add the 3rd officer to that budget. So it's going to be kind of like sort of like a wash. Now this is adding another officer on top of that. That's what my understanding of the proposal is.
Let me help you. Deal is going to go back to
being on the regular city's budget, yes.
So we're going to have 4 on our CRA budget. But
3 officers and 1 CSO.
Right. That's what I can go along with that. That's what I thought we was discussing.
But it's my understanding that based on the additional funds that were found, they want to add a 4th.
Well, they're not going to do it. We got to keep our own funds.
Sorry?
I'm happy with just what we just said we was going to do.
Okay. So what CRAB is proposing is a 4th sworn officer
Correct.
with an extra CSO, so 5 instead of the original.
So they would have 4 sworn and 1 CSO.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. You answered my question.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Board Member McCrae, I'm going to pass the podium to Board Member Romulus. Do you have any other comments regarding the agenda or the agenda item, the budget?
Just my comments in regards to this conversation is simply just I am fine with the original proposal of having the 3 sworn officers with the 1 CSO. I'm in agreement with Board Member Katz about allocating more funding into more policing. I don't believe that that's what's needed here in our CRA. I'm of the opinion that policing is important, but it's not the be-all, end-all to solving the problems that we have in the heart of Boynton. So I would prefer seeing that extra $100,000 that would be going towards another officer or CSO rather be used within our communities instead. In regards to Board Member Pinsurga's request for the $20,000 allocation, I just like to see numbers. So that's why I asked the question of what's the justification. So if the numbers justify the results, then I'm in support of it. So I would like to, just like this line item basically shows us of the expenses that the 2019 art walk cost us, the $6,400, I'd like to see a proposed budget of what the 17 or the 20, whatever we ultimately decide, how each of those dollars would be allocated and used, artists or whomever would be contracted to be used, the different dates that would be proposed for the 2 art walks that are projected. My concern that was brought up by actually the 2 individuals who spoke to us here, the one who's the vice chair from the Arts Board and Ms. Oyer, is about safety. I'm hearing things about individuals crossing Boynton Beach Boulevard, parking at Krispy Kreme and whatnot. That sounds dangerous to me. So if that location, if we need to rethink the location for the art walk, I would be willing to have that conversation, because I don't want to be liable or responsible for anybody getting hit by a car and people blame us thinking that it was because we had a, art walk on Industrial Avenue. That's what it's called, right? Mm-hmm. So if we need to rethink the location for the art walk as we try to expand this program, if we're going to be allocating more money toward it, I would be amenable to having that conversation, because I don't want to be put in any position where we're now being responsible for, pedestrians crossing Boynton Beach Boulevard, which is already a, major, very busy, especially right there off of 95. That's very dangerous. I'm concerned about that conversation, and if this is the cost for expanding the program, I would prefer to either leave it as it is or move it to a different location, because I don't like the sound of this whole, people crossing Boynton Beach Boulevard thing. I'm also not in favor of trying to do a shuttle. That sounds like more money and more cost and more expense. And again, perhaps it might just be a better move to just perhaps relocate the art walk and put it somewhere else where we don't have to worry about a shuttle or parking being an issue or whatever some of the other concerns I've heard, because it sounds like a good thing, but it could also turn very quickly into a bad thing, because this sounds kind of dangerous and concerning in my opinion.
Board Member Pinsurga.
I'm in favor of the safety grant program you mentioned. Regarding the additional officers, I'm in the same line of thinking with Board Member Katz on that. I mean, there's no question that we should be having more officers, but I don't think that we need to keep blowing up the budget for our own little police force. So I think, yes, we should get more officers, but this is not the place to do it. And you know where I stand on the art walk.
Right. Okay. My comment is that there is a crosswalk with a lighted signal for people crossing from south of Boynton Beach Boulevard to north of Boynton Beach Boulevard. I kind of request our executive director look into the free shuttles that are popping up at different locations, to whether they do an RFQ or something like that. I do have some information of that. And then also, I know that we have a member from Habitat for Humanity here. I'd like to have them approach the podium and give us their material and speak about what they've been doing with their nonprofit grants, and maybe explore raising that as well.
Good evening, Mohammed Abdallah, 181 Southwest 5th Avenue, Delray Beach. I just wanted to provide you guys, obviously, we have a, do you want this? We are interested in the nonprofit grant for $75,000, and what I am passing around is just an outline of our historical data that we have actually completed and projects that we have worked in Boynton Beach. I'll just wait until everyone has one. We typically save trees and we don't usually print it out, but we forgot to email it, so apologies. So if you take a look at the first page, historically from fiscal year 1998 to present 2019, we have completed a total projects that we are currently working on. We have completed projects, 76 projects. 3 are still under contract. 5 are pending, which will bring us up to 84 projects. Our goal is to utilize this grant and grow our neighborhood revitalization program. This past year, we have worked very closely and we have completed 11 projects. Our goal is to double the amount of projects that we have done this year and bring that up to 25 projects. If you look in 2010 to 2019, Brush with Kindness, we have completed 72, critical repair 23, community asset project 1, community cleanup 4, and resource fair 1. On the following page, it gives you a little bit more historic data with all the addresses that we have done Brush with Kindness and what type of critical repairs on which homes. And if you look at the last page, it will outline to you the last 11 projects were neighborhood revitalization projects and critical repairs that were completed from line 75 to 85. Obviously, our close relationships, we want to continue our partnership and work very closely with the CRA as well with the city. Our goal is to double, if awarded this grant, is to double our initiative and efforts to 25, and we're always open to new ideas and initiatives that you guys would like us to address and bring forward.
All right.
Does anyone have any questions or anything that I can?
Just the $75 grant, whether the executive director, someone refresh my memory on exactly what that will look like in the next fiscal year as is.
Not $75.
95.
As of the July meeting, the board allocated $95,000, which is the amount that you had in this current year's budget. And with that nonprofit grant, we've designed it so that the board has the ability to allow for applicants of the economic and business incubator type nonprofit, as well as a housing rehabilitation or a affordable housing nonprofit. You can decide annually whether it's all in one, focused spending item, or if you want to leave it to a percentage. I believe the Cra board last year divided up into a percentage of an 80-20. 80% of the money was going to go to rehab or to housing, bricks and mortar, and the 20% of the 95 was for other types of economic development programs.
So
you can do whatever you want.
So here's my concern. We have grants, and I'll incorporate another nonprofit so you don't feel like I'm singling you out on this, but every year we give the bulk of our grants to two entities typically, Community Care Center and Habitat for Humanity. In addition to them qualifying for these grants, which are really open to any nonprofit for the specified purposes, we typically give land to these entities, or we're financing the expansion of the Community Care Center and the movement of their property as well. So I worry that if we're going to create a grant specifically to give to these two organizations, then we need to call it that, because it creates the misperception that we've set aside 95 or 75,000 or whatever it ultimately is for nonprofits to apply for various purposes, but then inevitably it seems like most of that money gravitates towards a handful of well-established entities. So I think that I have no doubt in the next fiscal year that the CRA will give hundreds of thousands of dollars in property to Habitat for Humanity, and we've already allocated a substantial amount to the Community Care Center. I think my personal opinion is that these grants should be made free and accessible to entities that might not be as competitive or well-established. I just worry that we create these grant programs and then we give it all to the same people, so it's like an illusion of a grant program. I worry that's the direction this might be if we increase this or we specifically earmark funds for entities that come before us. I've got concerns about it.
All right. So before,
May I just jump in to give you just a little, the 2019 legislative session resulted in some changes to the legislation, and one of the issues that Mike and I have flagged for further analysis is whether a certain change to statutory language discussing what CRAs may appropriately spend money on. There was a clause stricken, and the nonprofit grant is one of those areas that we're researching. I don't have an answer for you. I can tell you that the work that you do with Habitat and the job training aspects are still within your parameters.
It's the Habitat and not the job training.
Correct. I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Sure. It's the brick and mortar versus
Correct.
affordable housing is the.
So I just want to let you know that that is something we're analyzing, the impacts to what you're doing, because it's, as with everything done in Tallahassee, especially to this particular statute, it wasn't done with the greatest of care and clarity. So we're just trying to make sure we give you good advice on it, but I did want to highlight that as you're having the discussion tonight. So again, from a legal standpoint, I don't have any concerns about the funds that you've spent under the grant program or otherwise with Habitat. That's clearly within the mandate of the CRA. It's more of the other nonprofit events because the mandate under statute for CRAs is for private enterprise, which makes this a little bit harder when you're talking about nonprofits other than those who are doing the affordable housing and building homes.
So is it better for us to say, instead of to a nonprofit grant for, you know, the rehabilitation or economic development, just to have it for-profits as well, and for those two categories?
You will. That might be a solution.
And that nonprofits can apply, but we're not only allowing nonprofits to do that.
You actually have 4 categories that were, that could be, you actually have 4 categories under this grant, and every year we bring back to you, after you reallocate the funds, one of it is also elimination of slum and blight, and we do know there were some inquiry just recently from the community greening folks about planting trees and things like that. So we will, you know, bring it back to you, and if you want to eliminate one of those categories for the for that is solely your discretion as well.
My thinking is that instead of, you know, Tara, is the outcomes that we're getting okay?
Yes, and what we have been doing.
No, I'm talking about future outcomes.
Future outcomes.
So, for example, you know, if we spend money to rehabilitate homes and help remove slum and blight, let's say, you know, we have, you know, try to end boarded up windows by giving grants for window installers to.
Yes, I think it's very specific to the activity, and I think you're right on target with what is the things that are questionable, and it's just like I said, it's some of the things that aren't expressly identified in the statute is within your realm that kind of that have been read in legitimately for the elimination of slum and blight, some of the events questions, and then nonprofits that aren't specifically related to, like I said, brick and mortar and improvement of facilities, community policing, that type of a thing.
So regarding the nonprofit grants, you know, I'm kind of in the sense is that the outcome I think is okay. It's just if we call it a nonprofit grant, we're getting ourselves into, we may go in a murky area. So that way it's, you know, opening up to other contractors, not necessarily just the nonprofit area. Not to say that Habitat doesn't have, is a licensed contractor, which I believe it is, correct?
Yes.
And so that's kind of, you know, I'm under that aspect so that, you know, if we can get some more clarification on this item with the 4 categories, and whether we just, you know, to make sure that we're in the safe zone to open up to all businesses, not just nonprofits. And so that way we can pick, is it the total amount of $95,000 for the total of all these categories or specific categories? And so
as of now, it's the total for all categories.
Correct. And so that's kind of where I'd like to have that the category list for us at the next meeting. So is there any other questions for Mohammed? Yes, Board Member McCray.
I have a question for Mohammed, but it's for us. I'm just saying I'd like to hold off until we get clarification. I'm just saying. I don't think we should move.
And I want to thank you and your entity, Habitat for all the great work that you do in Boynton Beach. We look forward to the new construction of the homes that you just started. And thank you again for coming here.
Well, we thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
I talked to two different issues than I talked to before.
Yes.
Okay, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way, a point of information for Board Member Romulus. I'm not sure if you're aware, the Boynton Beach Arts District is privately owned. It's not owned by the city or the CRA, and you had mentioned moving it, and I don't know that that's necessarily an option when it's a private person who owns those and is having the event at his private buildings. So I just thought that might be some information you needed. I'm actually the one who brought forward to Cra Board adding the extra officer, and the reason is because I'm getting calls from other people in Inca and around this part of the city in District 2, and they're upset because of the security issues, and they're not in HOB, and my thought was, why not have the additional officer who would work the entire CRA district, excluding HOB, because you're already funding all these officers for HOB, and that was my rationale for asking for it, whether it's problems up at Water's Edge, which those people have been calling me, or if it's areas down by Homing Inn or at the south end. I know one of the members of CRAB owns a business, and his business had things stolen from it, and mentioned that at the last CRAB board meeting. So that was my rationale for asking for the extra officer versus a CSO. So if they see a crime in progress, they can actually do something about it versus having to call it in, and maybe that person would get away. So I know the south end of the CRA district would very much like to have another officer. Thank you for your time.
So I'm going to ask the board to have final comments so that we can move forward, and that that we get a finalized number for or just more of a consensus for Jabara regarding the numbers for next meeting. Vice Chair, would you like to begin?
Question to staff before my comments on the budget. I don't see on the spreadsheet we've got before us the CRA staff proposed allocations from last time. I know that there were a number of line items that we didn't get to that were CRA staff proposed allocations, and now they're not before us, and I don't have my documents from the last meeting. So I just want to make sure that with this $500,000 we have to work with right now, that we don't miss something that we didn't consider last time that you recommended. I don't know if that spreadsheet is still available, but or if you could refresh my memory. Sure. From what we allocated last time, we skipped or didn't do a couple of items. What are those items that staff kind of we did not last meeting allocate? Not for lack of desire to, but we just we called it quits at some point.
Yes, sir. I would say, Vice Chair, that unless Twee remembers something differently, in looking at your allocations in the green column, you have touched on or have funded all of the recommendations that we have made to you, but I do think it's worth pointing out to you that the professional services line item here, the development services where architecture, engineering, et cetera, which is about the third line from the bottom, this line at your July meeting, because remember, this is your rollover. This column is the first column is rollover amounts, what's existing in this current year's budget. If you approve the item that is on your agenda this evening to fund the engineering services for the Northwest 3rd Street project, then $85,000 would come out of your July budget and leave you with only $65,000 in the professional services. So given that, and not having that column that you mentioned, Vice Chair, I would like to see this probably brought up to an even $100,000.
So you need what?
So 35,000 would go, ideally, if you could, because I think we're going to have projects, and this is a great reason to use it this year. And the line item in the existing current year's budget for the economic and business development grants are our actual grants for businesses. We have in the pipeline about $200,000 or $175,000 worth of grants coming before you, potentially before the end of the fiscal year. So I went ahead and reduced, if that were to happen, October 1st, you'd be left with this $150,000. And with the current amount that you have sitting here, you'd have, 272,000 going into October 1st. If you were trying to get to some other number in that line item, then I want to make sure that you are aware of those two, let's say, shortfalls in this year that would affect getting to, let's say, a $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 economic development grants. I don't know, given the importance of the project on MLK, certainly that type of a thing would take precedent over funding grant programs, but if there was some additional desire on the board's part to up that funding slightly or leave it where it is, I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, so to my recommendations, per the executive director's request, the $35,000 for professional services, I think that's essential because we have work that needs to get done in that arena. I assume in the current budget that there was 5 allocated for the arts walk already, and then we were discussing moving it up potentially to 17 or 20, whatever that was going to be. So 35 for professional services, I'd recommend. 12,000 additional for the arts walk, which would bring it up to 17 total. 200,000 for MLK in anticipation for a potential additional property acquisition that's on the agenda later. If somehow that doesn't go in that direction, it doesn't hurt to have an extra 200K in the MLK line item, because with Centennial and what's happening with that redevelopment, they might come to us and acquire more property and it might cost us more. So those 3 items right there alone would be 247,000 out of the 499. If we were to take those 3 recommendations, that leaves another 252,000. Some of that, I think, should go to the economic development grants to boost that up.
Excuse me, Bonnie, do you mind putting that in as the tentative numbers so that we can see how much is left over? If Vice Chair, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with everyone taking all my recommendations.
So can you do it again with the MLK corridor redevelopment? You wanted an additional 200,000?
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
All right.
It was 35K for the professional services towards the bottom.
So that would make it an even, 30.
An even 100. I guess 12,000 on top of the events line item. And obviously, if anybody disagrees, by all means.
So
I'm going to disagree when you get to me.
I appreciate you letting me finish. And then again, beyond that, I think that some more money should go to the economic development grant, but in the interest of not allocating all the money to my recommendations, I would yield the remaining half to.
So you want, would 75,000 or bring it up to 200,000 even?
If that's the will of the board.
I think that's a good number so that it's easy for Bonnie. And so how much money do we have left? 174,000. Board Member McCray.
Thank you. I'm in favor of the recommendation that came from Board Member Pinserga, along with the Art Commission that spoke to us tonight. I'm in favor of it going to $20,000.
We got that.
So I put 12 on top of the 5.
On 5, that's 17.
So,
I'm saying 20.
So 3 more on top of the events grant is what Board Member McCray is.
So what's it at now? Bonnie, what's the number at?
Events.
614,380.
Okay, so let's put another 3, so 617.
Can we just get a consensus on the 17 and the 20?
Yeah,
That way we're not
yes,
going back and
yes,
forth.
that's what we need to do.
I don't think you need the full 20, but
I'm fine with 17.
unless you go the free shuttles. But
I'm happy with 20.
I'm happy with 20 as well.
Okay,
I
so
think
20 wins.
previously,
Yeah, okay, we're going to do the 20.
20 wins.
We got the consensus.
unexpected expenses, you never know.
very good, of course.
All right.
Once you have it, you don't have to spin it.
All right, so
Okay.
all right. And is there anything additional?
Pardon me? I haven't finished. I got another one.
Okay.
As recommended by the chief of...
Hold on, no. I apologize.
It's not your turn.
But I think there was a mistake.
There might have been.
Which one?
It was 602 for events, and then we added 12 and then we put another 3 on top of it. So it would be 602 plus 15, which would be 617. It just jumped to a higher number than
Right, that's what I wanted to clarify with Mercedes, because, Bonnie, can you bring up the...
Unless the original 5 was not included, then that's correct. But if the original 5 was included...
It is.
Then we only need to add...
So then it would
right
be
now,
617,380?
Yes, thank you, Bonnie. Right now, for the Art and Culture Walk event, which is the one, we have $9,300, $6,100 for the event, $3,200 for marketing. We could easily drop the marketing and push the number to increase that event line. But right now you have $9,300 for one event. So if you wanted to make it 20, you would just need to add the $11,700.
So it would go from 602 to approximately 613.
Can we go with round numbers for 615,000?
I'm fine with that.
That's sure.
And that will get the final, because some events run more than some events run less.
Exactly. So
yes, Board Member McCray.
Thank you. I'm in favor, excuse me, when we had our budget for the city, and Sergeant Deal was going to be paid for by this city. Okay, and when Chief Gregory, who's not here tonight, spoke to us, he was in favor of the 4 officers and the 1 CSO. As proposed by the PD department. That's what I am going on, because I'm not a sworn officer, I'm not a police officer, but when somebody who's running the department said this is what they need, and if there's a problem after they said they need this, we can go back to them. I'm in favor of doing what was requested first.
So keep NOP status quo.
The NOP is status quo with 3 officers and 1 CSO?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that what you're proposing, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the deal is going back there, so we have a total of 4 officers and 1 CSO proposed.
No, 3 officers and 1 CSO was the original. The Crab Board
Stop.
Crab Board added a 4th.
Hold on. Forget what Cra Board recommend. Is the 3 officers that we're adding, is this including Officer Deal's salary coming from the city?
No.
So we're only going to have just 3 officers instead of 4.
No, we only have 3 now.
Listen again to me. I'm in favor of the 4 officers.
We got that.
Okay. Once you got
Thank
it,
you.
okay. I'm through.
Sergeant Deal, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say on Sergeant Deal, Henry Deal, Boynton Beach Police Department. March 13th, the Chief of Police came and gave a presentation to the board, and he proposed 3 officers and a CSO. My salary was going to be in partnership with the program. I think that was the terminology. I think you questioned him at that time regarding a partnership between the city and the CRA. Correct me if I'm wrong, if something along those lines are said.
Correct. You got it.
Sorry?
You're doing it. Keep going.
Oh, I'm doing okay. I don't have any notes, so any notes? No, sorry. So yes, it is a partnership between the city side. I will still be in charge of the NLP unit. Unfortunately, not being funded by the CRA. So it's like a partnership or a partnership sharing. So my salary benefits, everything will be coming from the city or the PD side. If that clarifies anything.
Yeah, that clarifies. We've got 1 officer and 1 CSO we're adding on. Okay.
Correct.
Good.
That's what the Chief of Police suggested on March 13th.
That's what I make sure I'm hearing. Okay. Good.
Okay. Board Member Romulus.
I just want some data to be brought back. I don't want a 5th body, but if we were to replace that last CSO with a 4th officer, I'd just like to know the numbers and how much that changes things.
Cost-wise?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a CSO and an officer?
In this particular case, it's about $50,000. So the officer is about a $99,000 investment. The CSO is $61,000, so it would increase it. If you change the CSO, remove the CSO and added a 4th sworn officer, just add about $45,000 to this $532,900, and that'll give you the cost of the 4 sworn officers, removing the CSO.
Okay, I'm fine with it staying as 3 officers and 1 CSO. I just wanted to know what the numbers were.
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything additional before we move on?
So I'm in agreement with the remainder of the cash being, if no one else has any other allocations or movements of cash, I'd like it to be put into the business and economic development line item.
Don't do that yet, Bonnie, though. We're going to let Ty give an opportunity.
I think I've said everything I needed to say, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. One of the things that I was looking up when we were talking about the events and festivals, I was reminded that we have the VJ Day tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Veterans Park, which is in the CRA. And the CRA has not historically, promoted the different veterans events. And I think that's something that I'd like to see change, if that's possible. Tara? I know you just started chewing, so.
That's okay.
And then before you go, the other thing that I'd like to see is that we currently on the schedule do not have a May event. And recently they've created on the third Saturday of May, Armed Forces Day. And so I'd like to see if we could partner with, what is that? The Fish Depot Bar and Grill and our Veterans Park in the CRA to have, an Armed Forces Day event and give special promotions to the veterans of Boynton Beach and the surrounding areas. And so I'm thinking that we would add anywhere from $15,000 or $20,000 to the marketing budget and the events budget for that. And so I know this is a new item that we haven't discussed yet, but I'm glad I remembered it before we moved on. And so if I could get a consensus from the board, if they think that's something or Tara.
I will just say that I think one of the biggest question marks with regard to the ability for CRAs to continue spending money is the marketing and events line item. It's because the law on that is largely from Attorney General opinions that relied on the clause that's been deleted. I think I still believe that some events are perfectly within the realm of what you can spend them on, but they have to be directed. This is general and not a conclusion. I'm still going to bring you back a more solid conclusion on this, but just to give you general guidance. Marketing your businesses and economic development. Again, it's coming back to the theme and the goal of the CRA at the beginning. So the ends justifies the means in this regard, which is what we analyze in determining already. We're conservative. We give you very conservative advice on how to spend your money, and you do it conservatively. But I would say some of those may be questionable, but we'll bring back a little bit more solid advice on that at the next meeting.
Okay.
And I would also anticipate the second art walk event being spread probably into, I don't know what Mercedes had talked to Rolando about, but that very well might be that May event, which looking at the calendar, it seems reasonable that that would be seasonally right before they get into summer, but we can bring that back to you as well.
Okay, and so, the actual cost marketing for veterans events, that doesn't necessarily have to do with the business. And so is it legal for us to do social media reposting of different events that are happening within the CRA?
Yeah, that type of thing is always good and okay, because it's not a spending of money, it's marketing the overall CRA. It's more the spending of the funds, which is very restricted by the statute.
So yeah, when we go to the, was it Palm Beach County Days, we'll see if they're limiting veterans events. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And so I'd like to, have not necessarily the total remainder of the funds to go to economic development grants. I'd like to add another $50,000 to the economic development grants and have the remainder going to the MLK corridor area. And so, I see that we're going to have one more round of final comments. So, Vice Chair.
One point of information included in the events right now is the continuation of the lionfish derby in there.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to, make sure that's in there because I think after it, I think it was a unique event and it's an awesome concept that can be grown on. So again, that was on the mayor, and I think that's great, and I'm glad we're still funding that. I had something else, but I lost it. And I can't get it back, I'm sorry.
It's called a senior moment.
Okay. Board Member McCray? Yep.
Thank you. I'm agreeing with you about, I don't want all that money to go into the economic development grant. I'm sorry, that the whole thing.
All right. Board Member Romulus?
I'm fine with not all the funds going into the economic development grant. I think it comes in waves, and we had a good year past few years, and we had a slower year this year. Not that it's saying that businesses aren't opening, it's just that not as many were using the grant. So I hope to continue to see more businesses coming into the city, and that those grants continue to be a point of enticement for them. I wanted to just kind of put something out there, just kind of throw it on the wall and see what you all may think of this. This is an idea that I ran across when I attended the Sister Cities Conference, where I was speaking with some other elected officials from North Miami. And one of the projects that they did, it was a pilot project to help decrease crime in their areas. It was to basically purchase Ring cameras and allow for residents who are unable to afford them, but who want to help deter and decrease crime in their areas, to be able to receive a Ring camera and place that in their home, allowing for basically a partnership to happen with our local police department, so that any crimes or anything that occurs, that camera feed or that video feed could then be shared with the police department, allowing for crimes to be solved in different situations to be found, bring a solution to them. So it was something that they experimented with, and they saw a significant decrease in their crime rates. And I believe here in the heart of Boynton, one of the things that we've always struggled with is how do we decrease crime? And putting more police officers is not always the solution, because then we get the backlash of over-policing and feeling like people are being stereotyped or mistreated. But perhaps this is more of a hands-off approach, where people can willingly decide to be a part of the program. And this, again, gives more eyes and ears to our police department to be able to carry out their efforts. And again, we can see an overall potential decrease in crime for the area. So it's something I'd like to put out there for us to talk about, and if there's consensus to potentially approach this project, maybe we can allocate some funds towards a bulk purchase of Ring cameras and allow for residents who would like to participate and who can't afford to purchase their own Ring cameras to install that, and be something that
Ring camera is $150.
they are. But if you
And
purchase
so how many would you think about purchasing? Would you say 100 for 15,000?
Yeah, I would say 100, and perhaps, that would allow for a couple residents per street within the CRA to have those Ring cameras that could cover everywhere from the intercoastal areas to the heart of Boynton areas. And this would be strictly voluntary, wouldn't mandate anybody to do it, but it would be, again, a way for people to participate and help to decrease crime and help catch the bad guys, because usually that's I would say one of the issues that we have, where people just are afraid to speak up. But if it's there and it could just be shared voluntarily or anonymously with the police department, then we can help deter crime or solve crimes as well. So just an idea to put out there and see what you guys think about that.
All right. It seems that we got comments on that. So Vice Chair.
Just, I support it. I would just want to make sure that that particular grant came back to us, because there's certain areas that are more crime prone, and I wouldn't want individuals who don't live in an area that have any crime to come to us and take a free Ring. So I don't know what type of criteria, based on maybe crime statistics or whatever, but I just wouldn't want any resident in the CRA to be able to come to us and take one. And if we looked at police reports, there were no crimes reported on their street in the past 52 weeks or something. So I don't know how it could come back to us or what qualifications on that, but I would want them to be used for the intended purpose, not just, I live in the CRA, give me a free Ring.
Yep. So that's something that we may look at, whether the economic development grant that I mentioned for businesses for safety, that we allow residential properties as well access to that. And I think that's something, I got some head nods for consensus for that. And that's something that we may want to look into for, that aspect of the economic development grants, or we may call it, safety grants.
That, and we are obviously engaged and active in affordable housing with our partners that completely focus on income eligibility and income levels that I would presume you would like to fund these ring cameras for. So you have the model block residences, you have Ocean Breeze West residences. There are certainly other income eligible residences that either Habitat has already has performed the income eligibility for their brush with kindness. I mean, you could find enough income eligible recipients. I think we could bring it back for discussion. I would want to target affordability, because that was one of the things you mentioned, and I think the concern of the board is that just anybody that could get a free ring would come, and so I think you tie it to eligibility of income. And certainly the areas that we're doing affordable housing are areas that you'd like to see some extra security measures put in place, whether that's through the homes that are being built with lots that we donate, or this, I don't know from a legal standpoint.
The question is, are we choosing, or?
Yes.
Well, I don't have a legal comment. I just have a factual comment, because my Ring doorbell was used in a police investigation, and I know something a little bit about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only telling you this because there's an additional cost for there to the person who has the Ring to maintain and archive the videos. So it is a deterrent for all the reasons that you said, but there is an additional cost to have archived videos, which I didn't even know that until I was asked by officers.
$10 a month.
Yeah, something like that. It's negligible to certain people, but I just wanted to bring that up because I happen to be an example of one of those being used in an investigation, not in Boynton Beach.
Okay. Board Member McCray.
Thank you. I'm in favor of it being open up. I'm just saying, we need to, market it, for anyone who would like one. I don't want to just say, just because Habitat built a house, you can get a ring. I'm not in favor of that stuff. No. I'm not going to go that road. Anybody who qualifies.
You have to just.
You got people that has been there for years that probably can't afford it. They're elderly. They might say, I want a ring, but Habitat, let's don't, lock people out,
Absolutely. No, I was just coming up with an eligibility.
I know it was coming up with an eligibility and an example and stuff, but I don't want it to miss.
Out of 100, we could certainly.
And Wi-Fi is required?
Yep.
Yes, yeah, that's another issue.
Okay.
That's not an issue. I can I
Oh,
speak
they
to
got
that?
something? Yeah.
I just want to say that it's not an issue per se in terms of the Wi-Fi being required, because most families who aren't aware, a part of setting up this program, what we can do is we can also educate as well, where most families who are on free or reduced lunch in the school system, they qualify for internet from Comcast for $10 a month. Okay. So Wi-Fi can also be something that can be resolved if that is a hindrance for somebody who wants to get a Ring camera who cannot. So I think there's a lot of blockades that we may think, but they're really not.
Sure, and I believe if you have one ring on your front door, it can go to your phone and then to the cloud. It's only if you have multiple.
Be anywhere in the world and see who's at your front
door.
door.
That's absolutely right.
Okay. Board Member Pinsurga.
Just a brief comment. I'm 100% in favor of this. I think it's a perfect complement to your safety grant idea. I will just add that I recommend that you, the staff, approach the company, because this sounds like a pilot program, and they may want to also contribute, who knows, some free devices as part of this pilot program. I've approached other companies, and believe me, they are more than willing to give some good amount.
Or a group discount for hundreds.
Absolutely. So, Chair, of course, I would direct staff to have a conversation with Michael Gregory, our police chief, because they've already, or they're already doing something. They did a press release. I'm not sure exactly. Yes. I can't speak to it too much. Chief could speak to it more, but they're already doing something. But I wanted to expand the horizon of what they're doing. So that conversation definitely can be had. And there's already a partnership I believe PD has with Ring. So the Ring cameras could be purchased at a much less rate than just market value.
Okay.
Thank you all for supporting this.
Our pleasure. So, Bonnie, what's the bottom amount? What is that's?
$124,363.
All right, could you add that to the MLK corridor? And so you don't need a motion, but consensus? And so do we have a consensus on this draft budget for next meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, we got a consensus. Thank you, Jabara.
Thank you, Board. Good discussion.
All right. The next item is the approval of the fiscal year 2019-2020 Boynton Harbour Marina Dockage lease agreement.
Motion to remove from the table. We're going to
Thank
discuss
you.
it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Items removed from the table. Michael?
Yes, good evening, Board. This item was tabled pending some further information that was requested from the Board related to the transient dockage amount and the comparable marina increases for annual leases with other comparable marinas. The information is in your attachments 7, 8, and 9. And if you want to start with the transient information, we could do that. Let's see. So currently, we have generated, if I'm reading this correctly, and Brian Smith is here this evening, that we have generated $14,800 in our transient slip rental in extra income outside of our annual dockage agreements. And that is at the $2 pricing. So the 50-cent increase would provide the CRA with an additional roughly, $7,400 ideally if the same amount of rentals, transient rentals occurred. And we are adding some advertisement to our marina. There's not, I don't know how many of you know this, but there is something similar with this type of dockage like an Airbnb where boaters can register and find these transient slips. It's kind of a slip on the go or slip rental. So we would probably, I would see an increase in our number of rentals. There are services and location benefits to our marina, let's say over other marinas in the area. I think that bodes well for a slight increase, being that we're located on Ocean Avenue with the 2 restaurants there and others. These are generally overnight or 2 or 3 night traveling vessels that are moving up and down the intercoastal and vacationers. I don't believe that, unless you'd like to ask Brian, I don't believe the 50-cent difference puts us in any jeopardy, I think, of turning away boaters. And you have significant size vessels. There is wear on the docks. There are utilities that they are using. So I kind of feel like that increase on the transient is somewhat negligible to the added benefit to the CRA. Unless you have a different opinion, or if Brian feels differently, I think that's how as staff, we've support that.
All right. My input is that we have had the $2 since 2014, and it doesn't seem that it has really attracted more per year, keeping it while the others has increased. I don't know, is that correct, Brian? Have you seen an increase in transient dockage now that we're less than some of the others?
The increase I think we saw was after the building was complete and the addition of the store. We did see an increase, but since then, I think it's been pretty steady.
Okay, and so the fact is that really, our competition has increased their rental rates, and so I think the 250, our executive said was negligible, but I think it would add value to us. And one of the things that I like to do with that extra income is I actually spoke to Jeff today.
Yeah, he told me he came by.
And one of the things that he mentioned was that we really don't have enough Boynton Beach gear or Boynton Beach CRA. There's no Pirate Fest, things to buy, whether it be hats or shirts. And so I think that I'd like to ask our CRA staff to start putting in the different CRA events gear for that for people to buy, so that it actually works dual as a marketing tool that people will do when they come to the Boynton Harbour Marina, because he says you guys sell out of koozies.
Yeah, we're also looking at getting some different koozies for the season, but we would welcome that, what you're suggesting also.
And so, he told me the process that you guys do, and it's something that he was very proud about, how superior the service is over at the Boynton Harbour Marina.
Well, that's great to hear. We want it to be that way.
All right. And as for the non-transient dockage, I think we want to keep those the same, because we don't want them to increase their rates. We want people still using them there. And so I'm happy to keep that at $19 per month. And so if the board has no other comments, if I could get a motion as such.
So move.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Thank you,
Brian.
Moving on to the CRA board discussion and consideration of executive director's annual performance review. I didn't remember seeing the email with this. I was able to fill it out today at my meeting with Michael. The question is that to the board members who did not fill one out, did you want to fill one out before the next CRA meeting so that we can have a discussion about it? And then I'm going to let Tara talk, but I feel like Board Member Romulus?
Yeah, I would agree with that, because I don't know if I missed it, but I didn't see this prior to looking at the agenda. So I did fill it out today, but I would, if other members have not had a chance, I would be fine with holding this off until next meeting or something.
All right. Board Member Pinsurga?
I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Holding this off until the next meeting.
Vice Chair?
Whatever the will of the board is. I spoke to the executive director, so I didn't submit a written evaluation, but the evaluation of the cover letter says oral or written, and I figured talking about it would be better than putting on paper. I'm a teacher. I'm adverse to evaluations and metrics and all that stuff, but whatever the will of the body is.
Okay. Tara?
I would just say that's perfectly fine, and I would just ask Mr. Simon if he consents to the postponement of his review, if that is the will of the board.
Okay.
It's a term of the contract to have it at a certain time.
Stop. Excuse me. Mr. Simon works at the discretion of this board. I'm asking him a question.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we are complying with the contract, but I am sure
Okay, and
it's
so
fine with
his
that.
contract ends?
It ended in May, so.
He's a free agent. Okay.
So we've been continuing on the same contract?
Yes, and we can make it retroactive, so it's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no issues, but.
Okay, and yeah, I'd like to have a discussion with our executive director regarding all of the staff members at the CRA as well. So, may I have a motion to table this to the next meeting?
So move.
Second for discussion.
Yep.
I just really briefly want to mention that when I was filling out this attached form to the agenda, that it mentions that evaluator's printer name is Mac McCrae, so staff may want to correct that and just leave that part blank. Because I'm not Mac McCrae. I don't look as good.
No.
Okay, and any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
And just to clarify, I was just reviewing the term because we have changed that. He doesn't have a fixed term, but he still has an annual review to consider pay and expenses. So he's not under contract. I just want to clarify that for the record.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep, okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 14D, 211 East Ocean Avenue project update.
Yes, Board, you had asked that staff provide you with an update on the activities around the 211 CRA-owned property and the redevelopment potential or potential activities surrounding that parcel. What was brought up at the July meeting was that the determination that it could possibly act as a CRA office with our lease running out here at our current location next year was quickly ended at the board's discussion with the vice chair administering the meeting because of the clarifications that the city staff had provided to the board and to staff that was the location. City Hall, the new City Hall is where the intended location for the CRA is on the 4th floor. Having said that, the building, the 211 building is still there. We are not investing any additional funding into the building or improving the building. I have had numerous meetings with the adjacent property owners about the possibility of them, looking at their property in combination with each other and the CRAs, and I've had numerous meetings with private development individuals that also have noticed its proximity to Town Square and some potential redevelopment opportunities there, whether that be private sector or with additional aspects being included that would benefit the public from the Town Square perspective. So if the CRA board is at this point willing to continue those discussions without a formal RFP, I will certainly continue those discussions, and hopefully they'll be fruitful enough here in the next 30 to 60 to 90 days at the most, bringing back some type of a letter of interest from a development entity, or we could put the property out for an RFP with your understanding certainly and knowledge that as it is individually, it is not as beneficial as it would be in combination with the other owners. So if we did something like that, I would want to try to bring those other properties on board and be part of that RFP. At this point, I'm not getting any feeling from them that they're necessarily willing to put a sign out on the property, and they're very much working with us and finding that partnership and beneficial to them. So that's wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not ready to go out on an RFQ or anything like that. I feel like talking with the property or adjacent property owners is the best direction for this board. One of the comments that are things that I've seen recently was the fact that we moved the K-pop tree that the city did. They spent the large sum of money to move that because they felt there was historical value in the K-pop tree, and this building is older than that K-pop tree. And while you can always grow another tree, you can't really build another building like this. I do suggest the board, if they haven't taken a tour, to take a tour. It's really fascinating. And one of the things that I was hoping that it turns to a visitor center for our new green space, and that it gets programmed someplace around there so that we have the parking garages near that, and that it really gets something used as something that people that can come during the weekends or the weekday that want to learn more about Boynton Beach, and that's that location, because we do not have a visitor center here in Boynton Beach, and I don't necessarily know if our new City Hall library is going to do that function, or if we can use this building as that. And so barring, the actual costs of this, I feel that the property's value is something that can be used to deter those costs to the adjacent property owners, so that we're not just, giving away $1 million that we spent in 2007. All right, Board Member Cra, your hand was up first.
Thank you. I'm in favor of the visitor center because years ago we used to have the Chamber of Commerce that did like all of this information. They passed out literature about Boynton. They spoke about Boynton businesses, et cetera, in favor. We don't have anything now that's speaking about Boynton, and I'm in favor of having a visitor center downtown to let individuals know who's visiting this city, what is going on here. I'm in favor of that.
All right, Vice Chair.
So first, I'll say that, and I'll take the controversial position by putting an actual position down. The house needs to move from that property one way or the other, whether it's torn down or moved. That's a further debate, but after years of exhaustive attempts to try to get some usage out of it above and beyond someone just kind of cleaning it up and occupying it as like a gift shop or something very low intensity, I think it's on a prime piece of real estate that's critical towards the eastern development of Ocean Avenue and Town Square. So my firm position moving forward is the house needs to go. Now, whether that's to relocate it and use it for a purpose, a welcome center, what have you, whatever, I'm not particularly in favor of placing it on the earmarked green space in Town Square because then we lose green space. So, I don't know what could become of it. I have a concern about spending additional money on relocating it, though, at the estimated 125 grand, and we've sunk a massive pile of money in this. I feel like sometimes, with all due respect to the preservation community, that there is a desire to preserve for the sake of preservation, even if there's no purpose. And this, to me, is a house that, as I've come to look into it, is on the local historic register in large part to gain access to historic building grants, not as much because it is a historic building, but to gain eligibility for potential funds. So I'll leave it at that. I think it needs to leave that property so we can reuse that property. Beyond that, I'm concerned about costs associated with that if it is moved physically.
It's a 750 or 728 square footage base, so that's the amount of space that it would take up. So not even, basically.
Yeah, I get that, but it's still a house on a green space.
Oh yeah, no, and I think it's going to add value. So I don't feel like there's anything that we can do right now, but explore those two options and using the two adjacent property owners as kind of the guiding of what they're trying to do or what they're willing to do, so that we can best use this property, both the house and the land. All right. Is there any further comments? Seeing none. Moving on to the Neighborhood Officer Program second quarter report for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Motion to approve, second.
All right. The only discussion that I have moving forward is that part of our new Neighborhood Officer Program, as we won't have a sergeant specifically designed, that we have access to the captain for the crime prevention unit. I know that their new location is going to be in the CRA, and so over in Ocean Palm Plaza.
Yachtsman.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's the same place, different name.
Name change.
Yeah. And so with that, just understanding what exactly is going on there and see how the CRA can help with the conversion of that location for the community policing unit. Okay, all those in favor?
Discussion.
Yes.
While we're on that report, when do the neighborhood police officers anticipate moving? Anybody know?
Sergeant Henry Deal, Boynton Beach Police Department. I do remember that you guys just recently approved on the city, it was last meeting for the city commission, It was approved to give the mayor the authorization to sign the lease, which was last meeting. So from my understanding, once that was agreed upon, it was going to be October 1st is the tentative move-in date of this year.
Thank you.
And also, it's the third quarter, not the second quarter.
All right.
Clarification on the, maybe terrible.
Right. Thank you. I was reading
It was worth you staying.
agenda. So amended to, can someone amend the motion for the third quarter?
Second.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Consideration of the October 8th, 2019 board meeting.
Yes, Board, if you need this item introduced, otherwise we are asking or notice that the October 8th board meeting falls on Yom Kippur, and if there is a desire of the board to alter the meeting date, there are some options, which would be the October 7th date or the 14th, but the board would first need to determine whether moving the meeting is agreeable to the board, and if so, we've provided dates.
Is everyone okay with moving it up to October 7th, Vice Chair?
Typically, Monday nights I'm not available because of my primary job. There's meetings on Monday nights.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that Thursday, the 10th, is out of the question, or if, I don't know.
It's out of the question. You don't stop no show.
Well, we're already moving it, so technically the show's been stopped. I'm just picking a different timeline.
I'm in favor of Monday then if we move it.
I mean, there are...
It's not available. Bonnie's said that that date is not available. Am I to assume that what you put down are a pretty wide range of kind of narrowed it down to what was available? Is that why these choices are here, or can we
Correct.
continue?
I contacted the city clerk's office and said what dates those 2 weeks before and after, and only Mondays. That this room is available, so in the city clerk's office to record the minutes as well. We have to coordinate all those schedules.
Right, that's true. Yeah, absolutely right.
The only other thing is that there are 5 Tuesdays in October. We could always do it on the 5th Tuesday.
I like my 5th Tuesday off.
Well,
You'd have
If I had to make
second Tuesday off.
had to make a choice, I'd be more comfortable with the 7th than the 14th, personally.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have a consensus on the 7th.
Yes.
Thank you.
See there?
Okay.
All right. Moving on to new business, consideration and discussion of the letter of interest submitted by Bride of Christ Tabernacle Church for the CRA-owned property located on Northeast 10th Avenue.
Yes, Board, the CRA staff received a letter from the Bride of Christ Church, a letter of interest for the property that you see depicted on the screen, located on MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard East. The lot is vacant and does not have a house number, so I'm referring to it as the lot. This parcel is located next to an existing parcel owned by the Bride of Christ Tabernacle Church, which also owns the church building to the north of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard on Northeast 11th Avenue at 202 Northeast 11th Avenue. This is where the primary church location is in the church building. You may remember that they did a substantial construction project, increasing the square footage and the overall design of the church several years ago, and the CRA provided them access to our vacant lot during the construction for parking for their services. The church purchased this 50 by 150 foot lot, 140 foot lot on the boulevard, and they have approached the CRA about acquiring our vacant lot in combination with theirs to build a child care center that would house about 40 children, open, generally speaking, Monday through Friday from 7 to 7. I don't know what their commitment is to weekends, or if they're going to be accommodating weekend activity or business there. but they've provided us with a site plan. The CRA staff and the city staff have met several times with their architect and engineer and the church members to develop this kind of conceptual site plan that meets the requirements of the city in order to provide you with an image of what, in fact, they would be proposing to place on the property. There has been some discussion in the past and as of late with regard to the need for additional child care in this community and really, frankly, probably in every community. And with the advancement of the new units under the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Corridor Redevelopment Project, there will certainly be an addition of 125 to 130 units of varying ages. So there most likely will be an increase of children in the area as well. Most importantly, it is supported by the city from a zoning and land use standpoint, and they have worked with them again to design the building to meet all of the requirements that the city would have from a planning and development department. They have not provided us with a price that they are willing to pay for the property. They did request to purchase and not to be granted or incentivize their construction with a $10 amount, but they did not provide us with an amount. It appraised for $49,000 on August 6th. So if anyone is from the church that would like to propose a purchase price, we can ask them. If not, and if that is an issue for the board, we can certainly bring that back with a more formal offer of purchase.
You got to speak into the mic, Vice Chair.
Do we know what the CRA paid for the property and when?
I can let you know that. Oh, here she comes.
Teresa Utterback, Development Manager.
I hear you.
Teresa Utterback, Development Manager, CRA. That was actually a property we acquired from the city. We did in 2010. We had a land transfer between the city and the CRA, and that was one of the properties. So it was an equal transfer. That's all.
All right, Board Member McCray.
Yeah, let me go ahead and give some comments. First of all, about the church. Okay, I'm appreciative that the church did the expansion. Okay, and in regards to the Child Care Development Center, my take is that, the property that they own now, they have it all fenced off, and I'm just saying, if we do this, I'm just saying, I'd like for it to be some kind of way that if we have events on MLK Boulevard that we could do shared parking at that church. I'm just saying, I'm kind of taken off when I look at that fence when I go by there. And my take is that we grant them even the property, let's sell it to them. Then there should be an incentive that we should at least have access to that property, that we could utilize it for any event that's on MLK Boulevard, because they're going to need parking. And that's my concern, is that we need to kind of like, if we're going to partner with them, they need to make sure that we should have access to get in and out of there when nothing is going on at their church.
In addition with that, I know that one of the things that, I don't know if the Centennial Management is looking to expand, was it Northeast 1st Street to MLK, but if we need any right-of-way or easement from them, I think that's something that we also should include, so that we are not in another discussion with them where they're not giving us that access. And in addition, I'm looking at the Google Maps, and it seems that they were using our lots for parking on a Sunday. So that's something that I believe that we need to have that mutual beneficial discussion. In addition, I'd like to ask the Cra Board to review this, just review what we've said and to come up with either an offer or terms that we can relate to them of what we're trying to do. And then the further aspect of it is that I'd like to actually have the second aspect of childcare, which kind of leads to economic development, because if you have daycare, that means the parents are working. And if you don't have enough daycare, that means the parents aren't working. And Tara's nodding her head. And so that's something that I'd like the Cra Board to review, the different daycare facilities that we have in the CRA district, to see what we can do to see if we do need to expand. I know that there is the nonprofit Lutheran Services Florida Head Start that's in the CRA district, and just do it more overall reaching of the daycare issue within the CRA district because of all the new development that is happening in our city center and heart of Boynton. And so I'd like a motion for those two topics for the CRA board to review.
So move.
Second.
Board Member Ramos, you have a discussion?
My only concern in your request on that, Chair, is simply we know that childcare is an issue. We know, what does that have to do with this discussion here tonight? I don't think we should postpone this decision for 2 months, because then it would have to go to the CRAB and then come back to us before we have a decision made. Does that really need to be had? Does this CRAB board really need to weigh in on this for us to make a decision on this? I think we know the issues with childcare, and I think all the points that you mentioned are kind of obvious, I think, in my personal opinion.
Just to respond to it, it's trying to get all the information before we make the decision. And Board Member McCray?
Thank you. I think we need to give it back to the CRA board. I know they're here to present. My take is that we have daycare facilities. We have the Gertman facility, which is under new management that we supported, that is not full. Okay, that right now the property that we own is fenced off. They're using it for property. I represent District 2. My take is that it needs to go back. There's no urgency to rush into giving this property away or doing anything with it. Let the CRA board see what they can come up with, and see also the group here, what they're willing to pay for it. I'm just saying, I know there's an urgency, so some people say, but there's no urgency. I'm sorry.
All right. Before I call a vote, I'll ask, I guess, the person at the podium to, introduce themselves and make their public comments.
Yes, hi there. I'm the project manager for the new project. We built the new church in 2006. My name is Vera Marie Verna.
And your address, please?
And my address of the property is 202 Northeast 11th Avenue. So what I wanted to tell you is something that I discovered about this church. They're a mission church. That means they give away all of their money. We had to tear down the other church in 2016. They're a poor church. They don't have much money. So they give it away, and I had a problem when I was trying to get their mortgage to build it because they give it away. So they do get a lot of donations, but they give it away. They're a mission church. So they decided, since they're a very young church, that they needed a daycare. So they didn't want to just have a daycare, they want to open it to the public. So they asked me to do a review of the 18 daycares that were in the area to decide what would work. So I did all that, made sure that I had all the quality teachers, Head Start, BBK that is funded, publicly funded for single parents that can't afford daycare. And what I found out was they're pretty pricey. I did a survey of 18 of them, not including the YMCA, which is at the top end. It went anywhere from $150 in a private home for 6 kids to $290 a week. Now, knowing that the area across the street is low income, I talked to them about giving them the best care, the best teachers, the best programs, the best food, the best everything that everyone else was offering for more money at a very low price. And they agreed. So they could charge more. It's going to be new, state-of-the-art, with everything that is new. The meals, the programs, the Head Start program, the program for single moms that I had to take advantage of myself because daycare is so expensive. And I do want to tell you that when I did the survey, I got the vacancy factor. Some of them had no room. Most of them that were more expensive had no room. And so the ones that were at the low end didn't provide the meals, or they didn't have the appropriate number of instructors for each class. So we intend to have high quality teachers to pay them what they deserve. And you need to have certification for Head Start. You have to have certification to be able to qualify for the state programs that support these people. So I thought that you should know that they are a mission church. They give away everything. They only have their services one time during the week. We did use the parking that was supplied when we built the church in 2016. A lot of the people that I hired did it as a lower price. The builder, the architect is a high dollar architect. He did the church. So they're realizing that sometimes you have to give a little bit back, you know, and so for a good cause. And I think that the children that live across the street, their families, just like this church, they're all young families. They need daycare that is accessible, not across town, and not cost more than they can afford. And so I did want to tell you that I did that survey to find out, because I have to go to the bank now to get the money to build it. And once again, they're giving away all of their money. So I'm telling them, don't do that, don't do that. So they were there. I do want to tell you something else. They were at this mission church for 25 years. These are the same directors. These are the same office officials from the church that I worked with in 2017. We had to actually tear the church down. We had to tear the church down after 25 years of them being in there. The pastor doesn't take the usual pastor salary. He doesn't. They give everything away, and they just want daycare for their own children that's affordable and not fly-by-night daycare, quality daycare. So we have looked at all the grades that to 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and what I'm telling you is that I think it's necessary that we have affordable daycare. And I can show you my report that I did of the 18 daycares that had no vacancy factors, cut corners by not giving the snacks and lunch. So that is all what we're about. And so I ask you to please consider it, that it's a need, and I believe that these people will do their best to give everything that they need to give from their standpoint of what they have to do to support a quality daycare. Thank you. Thank you.
Vice Chair, then Board Member Cray.
Two questions real quick. One, is the church planning to operate this, or are you as a third party working with the church planning to operate this? Or are you also the church?
No, I am not the church. I have known them for years and years, and I have a nonprofit myself. But what they will do is they will hire the teachers and the directors of the daycare. They will be paying for that. So it will be quality teachers that you have to interview and pay for, because there's certain requirements for each age group. Has to be certain certifications for each of these daycare in order to be able to get Head Start.
To the question, if we were to sell or give or whatever the property and this were to move forward, the land, the building, the business would still be retained by the church. I just want to make sure that we're not giving it to the church, but then it ends up being a third party that works with the church. And
no, not at all. No, it would be run by the church. Okay. As a matter of fact, there has to be a unity of title, and that is that they will own all of these property. They will own those property, that extra property, if you would sell it to them.
And then a second question real quick. You've mentioned a handful of times that the church members have children that would utilize this. At one point, you did say the public.
Yes.
What percentage of the seats that would be available would be open to the public versus church membership? Because say it had 100 student capacity and 95 of those students were only, so it wasn't really open to the public. Like, what's the plan?
That's really true. Well, a lot of their parishioners live far away. They actually own a bus and go pick them up. So that's only on Sunday. They have a one service during the week. So the rest of the time, the parking is vacant. The people are not there. They're going to go locally to where they are far away. I mean far away. And so I think that the fact that we have those people that are moving right across the street that are low income will keep them full, because they have to be full at 40 people to be able to support this venture where you have quality teachers, quality food, all that. So as far as the parking, they don't use the parking except on Sunday. And when they have their service during the week, it's after 5. So the daycare would be 7 to 5:30. And I'd like them to even stay open a little longer, because so many daycares charge you $1 a minute if you pick up your child after 6 o'clock. That's not right. So I'd like them to stay open a little longer if it's allowed by the city. Some cities don't allow it. Some cities do allow them to be open on Saturday, but some don't. So what we had intended to do was 5 days a week, 6 to whatever we're allowed to do, 6 to 7, 6 to 8. And so we charge so much a week. And as I say, I wanted to know what we could charge to be able to say, you own it, how much in expenses, all that, are we going to have to present to the bank that's giving them the mortgage to build it? They are not a wealthy church.
Thank you. So is Board Member McCray.
Thank you. Stay there, because what you said, I picked up on the same thing that Vice Chair said. You said for their own children. That came out of your mouth. Okay, and we're using CRA dollars. I'm just saying, and it's for the CRA district. Please listen to me. And I'm just saying, I am concerned. You said that they are a mission-based church, that they give everything away. My concern is that, will they give this money if they make any money off of this? My whole take with this is, I have problems. Please listen to me. I have problems with the way it was presented. I know you're speaking for them. I don't think it's the right move right now, but what we're trying to do here in this city, and just like I said, it needs to go to the Cra board. You got your reports. You didn't even think enough of us that said, this is the report that I got. I want y'all to see what I have received. I like to read stuff. I'm just saying, you didn't give it to us.
Okay. No, I just wanted to tell you that they agreed to go for a moderate price.
I'm through with the discussion.
Okay.
All right. Board Member Romulus.
What is your name again, ma'am?
Vera Marie Verna.
Okay, Ms. Verna, do you have the survey that you conducted that you could share with the board?
Yes.
Okay, we would appreciate.
I would have to type it up and get it over to you.
Board member is asking for here.
Okay.
In addition, to clarify, which I believe you've already answered, you're saying that a majority of the students or children that would use the services of this facility would be the local children, because the parishioners of the church live far away, correct?
Yes.
So they wouldn't be the main ones using this
No.
facility. It would be accessible to the public that's within the
That's right.
vicinity. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. We have the two items for the Cra board. Is there any motion to amend those? Seeing none?
I would simply just say that if she could provide her findings to the Cra board as they, go about this assignment that you've given them. I believe she is an expert, has already
I think, I believe that she's going to have an opportunity to present to the Cra board full discussion and, talk about the implication of the parking lot that is not used 5 out of the 7 days. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. The next meeting, I believe, is, when is the next Cra board meeting? Because it's not September 5th. Is it?
It is September 5th.
Where is it going to be?
It's the CRA office.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I think we've
Our next item is our revised agenda, consideration of the CRA's letter of interest to purchase the property located at 100 East Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, formerly known as Family Dollar.
CRA board, we have, as was directed by the board, we have been in contact and have tried to keep in contact with the operators of the Family Dollar.
Turn that mic so you can hear you.
As directed by the board, we have, and in our own interest as staff, we have been staying on top of the activities with the closing of the Family Dollar to such a degree that we have spent time with the help of our legal staff, and Ken Dodge in particular, in trying to stay in front of the Family Dollar corporate entity that was purchased by the Dollar Tree, and the property owner, investor that owns this property and others in a trust or a REIT. So after numerous attempts to locate the owner, we were successful in doing that, and we were successful in several discussions between myself and Ken Dodge and the owner in relaying to them the board's interest in seeing the property be successful. to not see the property stay dark and abandoned, or worse, perhaps a tenant that would not be beneficial to the goals and objectives of the CRA with regard to redevelopment and stability. And he was incredibly open to the efforts that you have done as an agency and to us as staff, and I think it found a place for him that he was almost immediately open to the discussion of either using our assistance to find a tenant or to sell the property, and whether we found a purchaser or it was something that the board was interested in purchasing ourselves. He is actively negotiating a lease buyout with the Family Dollar now. It is obviously they are still a tenant, an active tenant under the terms of a lease. If his discussion with Ken and I was that if the CRA in fact was interested in purchasing the property, it would be his intent, and an ideal scenario would be to sell the property. He's in California. He has no intention of opening a store himself or occupying the property himself, and would like to assist us in our work in the future. So he is kind of put on the table that if we are interested, that a number, and I'm using a number between $1.1 and $1.2 million, because the exact amount in the letter of interest would not be known today unless you wanted to refine that to one specific number. But a lot of that number is the difference between what the Family Dollar Corporation is willing to pay the owner to release them of the obligations under their lease. It is his intent to try to gain back his original investment, which essentially would negate any additional profit or additional funding that he's looking for out of us or the Family Dollar. So that $1.1 million, $1.2 million is the difference between, and that would be what he would be willing to sell to the CRA if they were willing to purchase it or interested in purchasing it. He's kind of giving us the first right to engage in that discussion.
All right. Board Member Cra, would you like to begin?
Thank you. This is for Mr. Simon. I know with all the incentives, economic development program funds, et cetera, how much money have we spent on this project?
We gave approximately $103,000 in economic development grants for the construction of the project, and we provided them with the lots that we had purchased, in addition to another lot that they bought adjacent to ours, which was a total of about $700,000 worth of acquisition for the Jesus House of Worship property and for the Roberts grocery store. Those two properties, in addition to the Berry property, make up the site that is the Family Dollar. So we were two of the three, and in total, that's about $800,000. The vacant land plus the grants.
Okay, who built the building?
Booz Development. They purchased the land from Mr. Berry. We offset the cost of the land that they had to purchase from Mr. Berry by providing our land at the $10, and the funding, they had all private funding, and they got the $103,000 in our commercial grants that we were giving at that time.
You know, I'm just one person, but really, I am not in favor. You know, we already got suckered in. That's what I'm going to use the word suckered in. We got into this, you know. That's the way I see it, because I really wasn't in favor of a Family Dollar being built there anyway. But my whole take is that with all the money that we have invested, and then we got to turn around and pay another between $1.1 and $1.2 million, I think it's kind of like asinine to me, sir. I'm sorry. I can't go along with that.
Board Member Pinsurga.
It is asinine to have spent this much, and the outcome is what it is. But I think the best step moving forward is to have this under our control. So I am in favor of purchasing this property, just so it can control its future.
You know, the way that I see it is that we gave, at that time, the appraised value of $1 million away to the Booz family. We did not put any sort of, as I say we, I'm talking about the CRA, but without putting any soft second lien on it so that they couldn't just turn around and sell it and not act as a management company of the asset that we gave them. But looking at it with the numbers that we're proposing, Family Dollar is not, or Dollar Tree, the owner of Family Dollar, is not filed for bankruptcy. And so, this is an opportunity for us to get an 8,000 square foot building that we could program it out to the grocery store that the community has always wanted. I just was recently at the mall, the Boynton Beach Marketplace, which is a 7,000 square foot facility, which hosts, both a green market and about 10 to 12 different other vendors. And this is something that we may use for that facility. I think that it's foolish for us to think that this the owner of the property is going to do anything less, from the range of 1.1 to 1.2. So I think that we should be, state state distinctly that we're willing to offer the $1.2 million and that to be our highest bid. And that way we're not going back and forth with, well, what is it, 1.1, 1.15. And so I am all in favor of moving forward with this letter of interest for $1.2 million. Board Member Romulus.
I would echo that sentiment and simply just say that, in regards to your comments, Board Member McCray, when that Family Dollar was put there, that's basically because that's all we could get. And so I guess the members of the board at that time were willing to take that. But I think at this point we have an opportunity where lightning is striking twice now, and we have a much better layout of what MLK will be, and we can recreate the future of that anchor point there on MLK and Seacrest. I have, a vision for that corner, and it's definitely not to continue to be under the Family Dollar or Dollar Tree, whatever, ownership. I would love for that to come back into our hands and for us to have a say in the future of that property, and absolutely allowing for it to be some type of green market or fresh produce location is, I think, vital for the Harbour Boynton area, being especially that there is a food desert there. People have to basically drive out of the Harbour Boynton to go get food and fresh food, and Family Dollar was never the right choice then, and I'm glad that we have an opportunity to rewrite that wrong. So this is, I see it as an opportunity. I understand that, yes, the financial implications of what we've already spent and what we now will spend seem difficult to take, but at the same time, we're getting a built-out facility from before what it was, which was just vacant land or just dilapidated facilities that were there. So I see this as a win, and I see it as we can use it to really spearhead the MLK redevelopment process that we're going through right now.
Vice Chair, do you have any comments before I call for a motion?
Yeah, so I'm torn about it. My gut reaction was, and I think it's similar to my gut reaction to a lot of the properties we've invested money in that haven't really turned out the way we've liked over the course of time, is we put a bunch of money into this, it's not ours anymore. My gut is to wash our hands of it. I see the value, obviously, in trying to control the property because it is adjacent to a major project. Whether it's we purchase the property, if that's the will of the board, if that's how it goes, I see that. When we talk about putting a grocer in there or a green market or whatever, what does that mean? Does that mean that we're going to spend $1.2 million and just hand it to somebody or sell it to somebody at some discount? Since I'm torn on it, I'm not personally prepared to make a decision on it at this time. I don't even know how much more time I would need to kind of personally reflect on it, because I would need to know how it would be applied to the MLK project that Centennial's working on, or would we just acquire this and then flip it to a potential tenant in the short-term future to open up another business in there. I don't have the answers, and I don't know if the answers can't be provided because they're hypotheticals. So at this time, I don't think I can vote for it, not for a firm disapproval of it, but just because I don't know enough to allocate $1.2 million. So I think, again, not in firm opposition, but I'm not ready to personally vote for it.
Okay. My final comment is that, we don't necessarily know what Mr. Aikenhead, I believe his name, is going to get from Family Dollar. And so, if he only gets $300,000, $400,000, our offer is not going to be good enough, and he's going to ask for more. If he asks for, let's say he gets $1.5 million, then he's absolutely going to take our offer, and we can move forward. The property was sold, I believe, in 2016 for $2.5 million. So, in essence, we are getting the building for less than it would have cost us to build it. And the theory behind me wanting to purchase it is that if we don't make the offer, we don't have the ability to control the outcome. At least this puts us more in the driver's seat so that we can make the decision what happens. Whether we do find a new tenant, while we find a management company, while we have a myriad of options, and this will add value to the Centennial Management Corporation. Plus, this additional parking lot or area may be added to that 3-story residential unit, where they may be able to change that makeup so that they can get more density into that, because one of the reasons why it is only 3 stories is because there isn't ability for the parking garage to add for the higher level, where this is mixed use 2, which goes up to 65 feet. So the aspect of it is that I don't believe that the developer has any issue of paying what the property taxes are on the property. Here, I can pull it up now. But we may not get the second. So the property taxes are $40,000 a year. And, if he has the $2.5 million to buy it, I think he could spend the multiple years of just keeping it vacant to get the price that he wants. And so that's why I'll call for a motion for the $1.2 million to move ahead with the letter of interest.
So move.
Second.
Any last discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, the vote is 3-2 with Board Member McCray and Vice Chair dissenting. Moving forward, you have consideration of an interlocal agreement between the Boynton Beach CRA and the City of Boynton Beach for engineering services related to the Northeast 3rd Street Roadway and Utility Improvements Project. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Consideration of registration and travel expenses to attend the Florida Redevelopment Association 2019 Annual Conference on October 16th to the 18th, 2019 in Tampa, Florida. Michael, if I believe you have in the budget for all 5 of us to attend the FRA conference?
Yes, that is correct.
At $1,000 and roughly per person.
Yes, sir.
I won't be able to attend.
I won't be attending.
I attended last year. I thought it was very beneficial. I do believe we have 2 CRAB members that are going.
You do?
I would request a report from them, what sessions they went to, what did they learn, what would they like to see this CRA board change. And I'll ask Commissioner Romulus or Board Member Romulus or Pinsurga if they wish to go.
Yes, as you know, this is my first year in this position, so I most definitely want to go.
Okay.
I would attend as well. I haven't been to the FRA conference since my first year on this board, and I would just like a refresher.
Yep. Board Member McCray.
Thank you. If there's going to be a stipulation for the CRA board to bring back, the CRA board to bring back what they learned, I'd like to hear what you all learn when you all come back too. It's after all this money that is used for the public.
More than happy to.
Thank you.
All right. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I put on this, requested this item to be put on the agenda, consideration of the invitation to the 37th Annual Business Development Board Gala for Palm Beach County. There is a significant cost to attend this award ceremony for the BDB. Because I'm not attending the FRA conference, I wish to attend this as an ability to network with the higher level businesses of Palm Beach County.
I'm going to go ahead and speak. I'm just saying I think that this is a hell of a price. I don't know what we're going to be getting out of it. You network and keep networking all you want to, but I'm just saying for us to spend $450 of money that's supposed to be used for the CRA, I think it's a disservice to what we're supposed to be doing. It's just networking. You call it networking, but I think you've been networking long enough, sir. That's my opinion.
All right.
I'd like to echo those sentiments. I will not be attending. I think $450 per plate is absolutely ridiculous. It's obviously not a work-related event, so I will not be attending.
I'll disagree with my fellow board members' sentiments. I don't personally plan on attending this, but I would be fine if the mayor would like to attend and for us to just allocate a singular ticket for him. I'm of the agreement that as the third largest city in Palm Beach County, we have an obligation to our community to help basically grow and expand our horizons. And the BDB, the Business Development Board, is the most coveted board here in Palm Beach County to sit on and to be a member of, and they are bringing in resources from all over the country and attracting businesses and employers and employees from all over the country and the world, mind you. So I don't see it as an issue to allow for the mayor himself to go if he'd like to go, and to allow that to be something that can hopefully perpetuate bringing to our city some not developers, but employers that could potentially bring jobs and help grow our city economically.
Board Member McCray.
Thank you. The city pays membership dues to this, and also I think the CRA, am I correct? Are we hitting this double?
We are members of the BDB, and I believe the city
and
is
the city as well. How much money did our membership cost?
I don't know, Jabara, it's...
You can get it there. Good night here. You can get it back to me.
I will get that to you.
Okay, I'm through.
All right. Vice Chair, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think it's an extravagance. I understand the dollar swap that you mentioned. If you don't go to one thing, that would certainly be cheaper to go to this, but there's like a weird irony that a business development board throwing an event for CRAs charges what would be the highest per ticket price I've seen for any event. So I can't support it at this time.
All right. It looks like we have public comments.
Thank you. David Katz, 67 Midwood Lane. Excuse me, I don't disagree that the Business Development Board is important. In the backup, it states, or the staff supplied, that there's budget for meetings and conferences. This is a gala. The copy of the invitation says there's a 7 p.m. cocktail reception, an 8 p.m. dinner and dancing. There's nothing about workshops, nothing about lectures. It's all about the circle jerk of shaking hands and meeting people. And
excuse me.
As the mayor would, excuse me?
Yeah, we don't use that language here.
Well, I didn't use a foul language.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, this is a waste of taxpayer money. And I think going to this, and just my humble opinion, this might be going outside the constraints of Statute 163. As the attorney stated earlier, they're tightening up how you guys spend your money, and this is definitely a waste of money. And you guys should not approve the mayor going to this. The FRA is much more important. You learn things there. There are lectures, there are workshops, how other CRAs are doing things. This is just somebody wanting to get a dinner. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I'm against this, and my first question will be, are there other cities going? And if so, which ones are they? Are you guys aware?
I've never attended. I don't think anyone from the city or the CRA have ever attended. Okay. But we're members of this organization.
Thank you. My comments would be that this is expensive. I've been to the breakers before, and this is expensive even for the breakers. I mean, this is like what you pay for a night at the breakers. This is not, dinner. I can't, if it was $100, I would say, yeah, that's appropriately priced for the breakers, but this is very overpriced even for them. And I am in Palm Beach for events all the time, and they just don't spend this kind of money. I would also say if you truly want to go, you do have an expense fund. Please use that. I believe you get approximately $6,000 to $7,000, and this seems like an appropriate use for that expense fund. And someone had mentioned about it would be a great opportunity for us to meet and greet other people. Well, we're the third biggest city in the largest county east of the Mississippi River. They mention our name in movies and TV shows. We're very well known. So I think being one of the few cities that actually has real estate available left to build out, we're on everybody's radar already. So they want to come to us. So we don't need to go to them. And I would, reiterate, how does this match our CRA mission? How does this remove blight to go to a cocktail party at the Breakers Hotel? Because I can't see that it does. So I would ask you to kindly consider voting against it just because it's not a good use of taxpayer dollars. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ramos, I appreciate your comments. However, I don't think we have a majority, and so if there is no further discussion, I'd like to move on to the next item. Sounds good. So I believe we added a few items to the CRA Advisory Board, the new assignments dealing with the child care in the CRA district, dealing with the Bride of Tabernacles letter of interest. And I think that's it so far. Is there any further comments for the board? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.